Okay, if I could have your attention, please, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Meeting of City Council on Tuesday, June 18th, 2013. Let's start first with that. At this time, I would invite Reverend Jerry Rocha with the Victory Christian Church to come up and say our prayer for us today, to lead us.
Let's all stand. Let us go to the Lord in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, what an honor and a privilege to come before you this morning to invoke your divine blessings and favor on this meeting. What an honor to come before you in united faith, lifting up the city of San Angelo. Father, we thank you for the recent rains that you have sent upon our land, and thank you for answering the prayers of your people here in San Angelo and the surrounding area. Father, I thank you for those committed and dedicated men and women who have come together today in order to make important decisions that will affect our city. And Father, we would ask for your divine guidance and direction today as they discuss and make decisions on vital issues that impact the lives of all of our citizens in our great city. May the spirit of wisdom, the spirit of unity, and the spirit of cooperation prevail in this meeting today so that you may receive the glory that you so richly deserve. For all these things we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, if you'll please remain standing. Today we have to lead us in our pledge 9-year-old Jonathan Thompson. Jonathan is the son of Stephen Thompson, who is our computer support specialist here at the city in our IT division. So if you will join me, we will start and lead us off.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Great job. Thank you, Jonathan. I have a grandson named Jonathan. Are you as feisty as mine is? That's goes with the name, I think. Today, we're here to recognize a few folks in the way of proclamations, and I'm going to get started with the, are they in order? Thank you. The proclamation for the Small Business Week. Whereas small business owners are dynamic people with new innovations and ideas building America's future, there are approximately 27.9 million small businesses in America today, which have created up to 64% of net new jobs in the country, make up 98% of all U.S. exporters, and their innovation, creativity, and ability to bring new products to market quickly. Small businesses are the showstoppers of the national economy. And whereas small businesses make a tremendous contribution to our nation's economic well-being and overall quality of life, small businesses, which represent about half of the private sector economy and more than 99% of all businesses, were at the core of expansion, which saw output, business income, and profits rise, and business bankruptcies and unemployment decline. The San Angelo small business community continues to help strengthen the overall community and provide jobs, opportunities, and whereas National Small Business Week 2013 provides an opportunity to recognize excellence in entrepreneurship and to salute and honor accomplishments of small business owners. Now, therefore, on behalf of Alvin New, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, and behalf of the City Council, do proclaim the week of June 17th through the 23rd, 2013 as Small Business Week throughout the city, and urge all citizens to join in saluting all of our small business owners while acknowledging that our nation's economic engines are fueled by the hard work, determination, and ingenuity of American entrepreneurs. Could I ask Dave? Are you here today, Dave Eric? There you are. Right, I mean, you know, just, anyway, I'd like to present this to you. Would you like to say a few words?
Okay. Well, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and thank you, City Council, for this proclamation on behalf of the small business community. I think the proclamation said it all. We're here to honor small business owners here in San Angelo, and I'm just honored to accept that. Thank you.
Mr.
Sorry.
Gregario.
I'm not used to this thing. Okay.
Okay. We have some recognitions today. This next one, a former mayor, Dick Funk, called and asked me if I could deliver the message on Thursday, June 20th, the recognition at the First Christian Church here in San Angelo, and he wanted to invite all of the council, as well as staff and you in the audience, to please attend to hear Monty Maxwell, organist. He's an organist at the United States Naval Academy, and he will be performing at the First Christian Church. I understand from our former mayor that this young man has done great and wonderful things, and we should be proud of him. And if Mayor Funk says so, then that's what I will be. I've not met the young man, but I'm happy to read his recognition. Whereas Monty Maxwell, chapel organist, director of chapel music, and the Midshipman Symphony Orchestra began his service in the United States Naval Academy in 1997. And whereas Mr. Maxwell is a native of San Angelo, Texas, earned his bachelor's music degree from Texas Christian University, Fort Worth, studying with Emmett G. Smith. Then invited to study at the Curtis Institute of Music with John Weaver, where he received an artist diploma, Curtis's highest degree, and earned a Master of Music degree from the Juilliard School of Music in New York City, also studying with John Weaver. And while studying at Philadelphia, Mr. Maxwell was an associate organist at the John Wanamaker store, playing the famed six-manual organ, the largest playing organ in the world. And whereas at the Naval Academy, Mr. Maxwell serving as the principal organist and choir conductor for the Protestant and Catholic services, as well as playing for weddings, memorial services, funerals, and performances throughout the year. And whereas Mr. Maxwell will be performing at the First Christian Church on Thursday, June 20th, 2013 at 7 p.m. Now, therefore, I, Alvin New Mayor, I guess I can get away with a lot since he's in Japan, City of San Angelo, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby recognize and applaud such accomplishments and achievements. Mr. Monty Maxwell. I'm looking all over, and I thought maybe the mayor Dick Funk had come with you, but no. We're very happy to present this to you and actually recognize what we consider San Angelo's own. So you're San Angelo's own. We appreciate your achievements and accomplishments to carry with you to others. Would you like to say a few words?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
First, I would like to say thank you for such an honor and a warm greeting to be back home. It's a long and interesting and exciting way from Lakeview High School to San Diego, Cleveland, New York, London, and many other places. And to get to come home and perform and share music with my fellow Texans is always a real blessing. The music on the program Thursday night will include music of Johann Sebastian Bach, George Frederick Handel, John Philip Sousa, Marcel Dupré, and other great composers. There'll be a big variety. Not all of it will be long-haired. Some of it will be shorter-haired and very familiar. And I hope that you can come out. If you've never heard a great pipe organ, First Christian Church has a wonderful instrument with many, many beautiful pipes of sound throughout the building. And thank you again for this great honor.
Maxwell? I can get it out. A copy of this.
Ms. Farmer, if I could, Charlotte, if I could, we need to understand how big a deal this is to have Monty Maxwell here. I've known the Maxwell family for 40 years, okay? And I've heard this guy play since he was a younger guy. And you have to understand the places he's gone, the things he's done, and how good he is in this industry across the world, okay? San Angelo truly is blessed to have somebody like that from San Angelo, okay? People need to understand how big a deal that is. And I say I'm truly blessed to have known the Maxwell family for that many years. And it's a big deal, and people need to understand and recognize that. So I applaud you.
Thank you, Mr. Hirschfield. That pretty much was the words that Mayor Funk used in describing you to me, and I told him I knew I would not be able to say it as humbly and gratefully and as excited as he said it to me on the phone the other night. But it will be an honor. I will be presenting this to you again on Thursday night, but we'll let you have the original, but I need a copy of this, please. And I need to tell Dwayne Morrison back there, come down. Lakeview is in San Angelo, so I'm sure he's very proud also. Okay, the next item, boy, it is with great honor I do this, and only he and I probably know. I think I shared it with city manager that it really is a great honor to recognize by the Texas Association of Municipal Information Officers State Conference on June 7th. Anthony Wilson and Brian Groves received awards recently. This is truly a great honor. I can remember 8 years ago when I got on council, and the technology not that there was in filming the city council meetings, the interferences, and you two guys come along, and I want you to know that I had a person while out campaigning told me we were better than Dallas, Texas, Houston, Texas on our information channel, that it was enjoyable to watch, so informative, the pictures very crisp and clear, and they didn't know who was responsible, but they wanted to congratulate them. So it is an honor that I commend Public Information Officer City of San Angelo for doing more, doing it better, and exceeding our expectations, and your high standards inspire us all. I have a few notes here that says a little bit, maybe for some of you who do not watch Channel 17, that I'm going to ask Anthony, because he is so eloquent as Public Information Officer, but if you two will step forward and accept the plaque, and then I'll get you to say a few words.
Well, a couple weeks ago at the state conference of the Texas Association of Municipal Information Officers, which is the state organization for public information officers, Brian and I were very honored to receive second place in the state in the best use of social media. We finished only behind Austin's Twitter feed, dang it. And we received third place in the state in best media relations. And for that, I mean, we really have to thank our partners in the media. They've been very gracious in working with us in order to help provide the community information about its municipal government that we think is of interest and impact to the public. So for that, we're very grateful. And as far as the best use of social media, we appreciate our colleagues for feeding us such great information that we can then disseminate to the public via our social media, because that's a way that a lot of people are now preferring to receive their information. And if you're not following us, then I would really encourage you to look for us on Facebook under City of San Angelo, Texas. San Angelo actually has a larger Facebook following than the cities of Fort Worth, Dallas, Austin, El Paso, metropolises that are far larger than us, and we have a much greater Facebook following. And for that, we thank the people, our citizenry, who do follow us and take an interest in our municipal government. And so we want you to follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter too. We're at City of San Angelo. And the really exciting thing about that conference, though, the awards were nice, but we learned a lot from some of our peers in the industry, practices that we hope to initiate here in San Angelo in order to just do a better job of providing information to our community, because I happen to think that we provide an extraordinary level of service here at the City of San Angelo. We haven't always done a great job of communicating that, but I think it's important for the public to know about the hard work of our public servants within the city. So.
Mr. Bashful here, Mr. Shy, y'all need to watch Brian real close, folks, before he's let loose to. I understand he's been compiling bloopers, especially council bloopers. So I look forward to seeing it someday, but not without an audience. But again, congratulations and thank you guys. Appreciate it. Another round of applause for some hard work. Sing a song while I get back up here. Okay, before I get too far along, I wanted to take the opportunity to recognize some special guests that we have in the audience, our newly elected officials, Dwayne Morrison, H.R. Wardlaw, Rodney Fleming. Those were the only ones that I saw out there. And also, I wanted to take the opportunity to welcome from Austin. We have some delegates from the police department in Austin, but Chief Art Acevedo is here today with us also. Thank you, sir. And we welcome you. Before we get started, as a courtesy to those that are watching the broadcast on current TV right now today or later on, please silence your cell phones. We have a problem, and not just silence, please turn them off. We have a problem with interference in this building, and you may not hear it right now, but it can be picked up and heard on the recording. A lot of clicking, buzzing, and hissing going on, and we want to refrain from that interference for all of our broadcasts, and we would appreciate that. Also, I want to take the opportunity to welcome Mr. Vardaman, Council Member, District 4, Mr. Hirschfield, Council Member, District 5. Good morning to you, gentlemen. District 1, Paul Alexander, welcome and good morning. District 2, Marty Self, good morning and welcome. And District 3, I know your name, Johnny Silvas. Thank you and welcome. And of course, our city manager, this here.
Daniel Valenzuela.
He helped me along. Daniel Valenzuela. Thank you. I apologize for not being the mayor here today, but we will do the best that we can. The session is open. We've called to order. We've done our prayer. We've done our proclamations and recognitions. We are at the point in the meeting where we're at the public comment stage. The council will take public comment on all items in the regular agenda. Public input on a regular agenda item will be taken at its appropriate discussion. Public input on an item not on the agenda or consent agenda may be identified and requested for consideration by the council at this time. The council may request an item to be placed on a future agenda or a consent agenda item to be moved to the regular agenda for public comment. Are there any items on the agenda that the council wishes to move?
4, please.
Okay.
Item 4, please.
Item 4. Okay. Are there any others? Okay, Mr. Seed, come on up.
Jerry, turn your microphone around, please.
I thought I was loud enough. Good morning, Council. My name is Jerry C., and I'm a member of St. Paul Baptist Church and one of the leaders of WTOS. How are you this morning? I'm here today because we're beginning to have a problem, and I'm hearing a lot of things here that's happening here. That's a problem somewhere else also. The oil company is coming, and it's causing a lot of anticipation. It's already causing a problem here in San Angelo. People are starting to raise rent, not just $50, $100 and so, and some of the people aren't able to keep up with that rent, especially the elderly and people on fixed income. Just Sunday at church, I heard of a problem. One of the guys that go to church with us work in Colorado City, and of course they have the same problems. And the oil company is already there. He was telling me about one of the oil representatives went to the city council and asked the city council for help because the way that the citizens there are being gouged. Okay, the rent on a 2-bedroom home, 1 bath, has gone from $600 a month to $1,500. Now, and he warned the city council that they can afford to pay it, but the citizens cannot afford to pay that, and that they're going to only be there 10 to 12 years. And at the end of the time that they're going to be there, there's going to be a lot of vacant property. And a lot of people are going to move because they can't afford to everybody's not going to be able to work for the oil field. And everybody's not going to be able to pay that type of rent. And that's the same problem that we're going to run into here if we don't do something about this now. And the biggest problem is going to be our handicapped, people on fixed income, and elderly people. Now, there's something that we can do now because I understand that PHA emergency housing, I understand that they might be running out or they have run out of that. But I believe that there's some kind of way that we can create some kind of rental assistance, emergency rental assistance, and that can be funded through the half-cent sales tax. Now, we don't need to get that confused with the housing sales tax that's already on board. That is set in concrete. We don't want to touch that. We want a portion of the half-cent sales tax set aside for emergency rental assistance. A new program for a rental emergency assistance program. Now, this can be done because of the people that's moving here. The problem is created anyway, and they can also be a solution to the problem because they are spending a lot of money, just the ones that are here now, spending money in our stores. They're spending money everywhere, buying furniture. They're spending money here at vendors all over the city. And that's half-cent sales tax. Now, our taxes in this city, it's gonna be a great thing, and it's also could be a bad thing. But we can take advantage of the increase in the half-cent sales tax. And that increase, we could set aside a portion of that to help our elderly and people on fixed income, because we can't stop these people from increasing the rent on their property. But we can assist our elderly and set up a program to help them pay their rent, because they're not going to get an increase on Social Security or other benefits they're getting. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let me assure you that our city manager is involved with the committee that is discussing housing, and that very thing as to what people can and cannot afford, and you're giving a report on that today. So if you'll stick around and listen, and then if there's anything new or that you didn't understand, we'll try to clarify the max that we can do under the law of free enterprise.
Yes, I
So-
understand, and I understand that it's being worked on, and I really do appreciate it. And I know a lot of our seniors that have put at least 65 years into San Angelo is going to appreciate your help now because
Thank
they're
you,
needed.
Mr. C.
Thank you very much.
Is there any
Thanks
other
for the
public
time.
comment? Is there a response that you want to add, Mr. Valenzuela?
No, other than we do have the presentation a little bit, just to address the multifamily. There's 3 different committees, subcommittees are created from the Housing Committee, which addressed single-family, multifamily units, and also temporary housing. And we'll give an update on that in just a little bit and let you know where we are in the process.
Very good. Any other public comment?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda minus item number 4.
Second.
Been a motion made by Mr. Silvas to approve the consent agenda, second by Mr. Hirschfield for approval, minus item number 4. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous decision for the consent agenda to be approved. Item number 4 is the consideration of a recreational recreational or agricultural lease agreement price for 2.616 acres of land located adjacent to the lake or river, and authorizing the city manager or water utilities director to execute the same. This is submitted by the Water Department. Mr. Ricky Dixon.
Yes, ma'am, this is just our normal property owners that have property that abut our property along the lakes and rivers have an opportunity to lease that property for recreational agricultural, and this is for 2.16 acres of that land out at it's kind of on the horseshoe portion of the river at Lake Nasworthy.
Any questions? Mr. Alexander?
This won't take long, but the key words here are next to or adjacent to a lake or a river. And so I went in and looked at this contract, and it looks good. But Carrie Meyer brought to my attention that we have other contracts, and I know they're out there, that don't allow the clearing of large trees. Now this protects pecan trees in particular. Nothing else is mentioned, and that's fantastic. But we do have leases everywhere, apparently, that don't allow us to remove mesquite trees, large mesquite trees. If it's a tree, it's a mesquite tree, and it's next to a river or a lake that's ours, I want that thing out of there, and it costs money for us to go remove it. So let's allow the property leaseor to remove those trees. And so in any renewal, any other contract that comes in, it needs to look like this one. Preserve the pecan trees, the oak trees. You have full rights to remove any mesquite trees you want to remove. And there may be other trees we want to add to that list that are big water consumers. That's what I'm looking for. This contract looks good, and that's why I brought it up as my opportunity to bring to the attention. We have a lot of new council members coming in here, and I'm leaving, and that's something on my radar list that I want to take care of. And so that's why I brought it up.
Okay.
Any
We
other
will look
questions
into
from
it.
council? Any public comment?
No. Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Mr. Hirschfield to approve, second from Mr. Silvas. All those in favor signify by aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
I want to clarify that it's not a resolution that we're approving, it is just the lease. I believe you stated a resolution. So,
Okay.
okay.
Clarification made. Going to move on to the regular agenda items. Item number 11, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm in the right place. Okay, item number 11, consideration of adopting a resolution authorizing the renaming of Rio Vista Park located at the 2700 block of Ben Ficklin Road as the Jaime Padron Memorial Park in honor of Jaime Padron, pursuant to the recommendations of the City of San Angelo Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. The presentation today is by Parks and Recreation Director Carl White.
Good morning. It is my honor and pleasure to present to you this recommendation from the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board to rename Rio Vista Park as Jaime Padron Memorial Park. Just a quick reminder of where Rio Vista Park is. It is located at the 2700 block of Ben Ficklin Road, right next to the Southside Recreation Center, Southside Boys and Girls Club, the Rio Vista Head Start facility. The park is currently undergoing renovation. The renovation of the upper level is almost complete. We should have a soft opening of the park later this month. The lower trail should be completed later this summer. Our hope is to have a rededication ceremony, official ceremony at the end of the summer, perhaps early next fall. We received the proposal in April. The request came originally from Mr. Bill Pritchard, who's a native of San Angelo but currently resides elsewhere. He asked that we consider renaming the park Jaime Padron Memorial Park. We have received several letters of support and emails of support for this proposal. We took this proposal to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board in April for discussion, and then we took it back to them, as is our process, in May for a recommendation. Unanimously, they recommended renaming the park. There are several in attendance today who are in support of this proposal. Several members of the Padron family, several law enforcement officers from different areas of Texas, including the contingent from the city of Austin, including the chief of police of the city of Austin. And I think a few of them would like to speak. Just a few things before we proceed with that. Typically, we put plaques at each of our new renovation or development projects. We put those usually on large boulders. One thing we anticipate doing is putting a large plaque at this location behind the pavilion. Everybody would see it as they come into the park. That would have the name of the park on it. We currently have a sign at the main entrance of the park. It reads Rio Vista Park. It could perhaps read, it would be fairly easy to switch that out and to read Padron Park. That's just an example of what we could do. And I think the proponents of the proposal maybe have some other ideas. So I'd like to open it up to some of the folks who are here who would like to speak on behalf of this proposal.
Okay, could Council, do you want to comment before the public, or do you want to wait after the public? What is your preference? Either way? Okay, since we have more from the public, we'll start, and I would ask that you be ready to come up and speak at the podium, and I'm going to ask for those in favor of before I ask for any opposed. Just come forward at the microphone. Please state your name.
Good morning. Art Osarello, Chief of Police in Austin, Texas. It's really an honor and a privilege to be here. I'm going to keep it brief, but I just want to say that from all of us in Austin, thank you for giving us Jaime Padron. He was an absolute angel in a police uniform for us. It was on display not only in Austin when the community responded to his sacrifice the way they did, but this city cultivated a man who was a servant in every aspect of that word, from his service in the Marine Corps to his service in the San Angelo Police Department and to his service in Austin, and ultimately to his ultimate service and his sacrifice. And I bring a letter here that I know you have a copy of from the Honorable Lee Leffenwell, our mayor, in support. And at a time when we look at heroes that really aren't heroes, like sports figures that, quite frankly, I don't want my kids to look at them as heroes. Jaime Padron was a true hero, and I think is a testament to what San Angelo and Austin are all about, which is service. And I think that it would be a tremendous honor to have a place where young people, young boys especially kids that grew up with less fortunate than our kids, thankfully, that when they see that name, that they can hear and learn about a man that stands for what makes Texas great, what makes San Angelo great. So I just urge you to pass it. I'm hopeful that it will, and I look forward to coming back for that reopening and dedication. And I would be more than honored to help raise the funding that it would take to pay for the signage or anything as just a gesture of our gratitude to this city. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Does Council have any questions of Mr. Acevedo or Chief Acevedo?
Sorry. Thank you.
No questions? All right. Any more proponents? Please step forward, state your name, and be aware to speak into the microphone so we can hear as well as those at home.
Good morning. My name is Linda Diaz. I am Jaime Padron's sister. And first of all, I just want to say thank you to all of you for considering even doing this. I also want to say thank you for the support, the public support, and all of our law enforcement family that is here today and that couldn't be here that are supporting us in this. It's important to us, and it's important for his girls to know that the city of San Angelo loved him so much. He dedicated 14 years of his service to San Angelo Police Department, and which we truly believe that shaped him into the man that he was, to prepare him to move on to his job that he had in Austin. But before that, he had that passion to serve, and he served since he was a little kid in helping and, pulling out chairs for older people, for, helping other kids cross the street. He just, as far back as I can remember him being a servant and helping others, and then going on to the Marine Corps and serving as a corrections officer, and then ultimately as a police officer, which was his passion. He served on multiple boards throughout his life, and he did a lot in his short 40 years, and we're so proud of him and so proud of the way my mom and dad raised us, and so we had a really great example in my brother and my kids and his children, and the rest of my nieces and nephews had a wonderful example in him. So I thank you today for just even considering this. It would be a great honor for us if you would give a little piece of San Angelo to my brother, his children, to our family. And so it would be a big deal to us and a great honor. And so I just wanted to thank you on behalf of our family, our friends, our law enforcement, both in San Angelo and in Austin, our law enforcement family. Just want to give you thanks, first of all, just for even considering that.
Thank you, ma'am, and I am very sorry for your loss. I knew Jaime, and I am very, very sorry.
Thank you. The city of San Angelo have been a great support for our family, and so we appreciate that very, very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of?
Carl, can you put his picture back on while Steve comes up? Or
Jaime's picture back on the screen, please. Thank you.
Hey, my name is Brian Bilsma. As you can tell, I'm a police officer with the city of San Angelo. Jaime and I was partners for almost 4 years. I'll tell you right now, I'm not real prepared for this. When it happened, I still remember the day. I still remember the time that I got notified. I still remember the words. My dedication at that time was to make sure that Jaime's memory was never forgotten. And that's why I'm here today. The Padron family, I've gotten a lot closer to most of them. I knew he had a sister, and until that day, I didn't know she could have walked by me and I wouldn't have known it. But I've gotten to know him. We know each other. We make phone calls. On behalf of the Padron family and on behalf of the Austin Police Department and the officers with the city of San Angelo, I'm asking you to go ahead and pass this resolution. Jaime was all about the kids. Even though we worked the gang unit and we concentrated on the youth in this town that were listed as gang members, and we dealt with them, according to the law, he was still all about the kids. And I feel that this would be a great honor to be able to rename this park after him. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else? Last but not least.
You already have the letter of recommendation that I presented to y'all. I think y'all all received it. I'll be very brief. I do think this is a wonderful idea. It's a very good way.
Speak up, please.
It's a very good way for our community to support and show the appreciation of the Padron, Jaime Padron, as well as honoring his family and the service that he's done. So as an organization, the San Angelo Police Department, we're very supportive of this.
Thank you, Chief. If there is no one else in favor of, I'd like, oh, excuse me. You're tall. I don't know how I missed you.
I kept waiting for the right moment. My name is Matt Baldwin, and obviously I am too a police officer for the city of San Angelo. Brian, I won't let you cry alone. On April the 6th of last year, I had the unenviable task of calling a friend of mine who was also a friend of Jaime's, Bill Pritchard. His father's present here this morning, and I had the unenviable task of telling him that Jaime was dead. And I've known Bill since about 1987. We're both grown men. We've both been in contact continuously up until present day, and I've never seen the man as emotional as I have since that time. He is the brainchild behind this, and he told me he wanted to name a street. He wanted a street named after Jaime, just because of the impact that he saw Jaime make in people's lives. And this idea evolved into the Rio Vista Park, the possible renaming of that. Thank you, Mr. Silvas. He's helped a lot on this. Johnny Padron, Jaime's oldest brother, they have done a lot of legwork on this. How fitting to have a park named after Jaime. How fitting to have that park renamed after Jaime, a district that I began working with him so many years ago here in San Angelo. And a park, a place like Brian said, that children could go and remember an individual who made an impact and was an example like he was. A place that my 7-year-old son, when we talk about going down to Round Rock and visiting his family, wants to go to the park down the street. That's where Jaime spent a lot of time with his girls. I ask that you guys give serious consideration to this. I urge you to pass this. It would be such an honor to the Padron family. It'd be such an honor to Bill to be able to see this through. So thank you for allowing me a little time to speak.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on behalf of the name change in favor of?
Does that include council, or?
Yes, I've asked the council several times, but
Well, I was just waiting for the public, but.
Okay. I need to ask if there's anyone here today who would like to speak against the idea. If there is no one here, then I would like to turn to council and ask for their comments, please.
I would just like to say, Ms. Mayor Pro Tem, that before I make a motion to approve this item, I again want to thank all the folks involved. Bill Pritchard, and like I said, Mr. Pritchard Sr. sitting in the audience, he's the one that kind of lit the fuse on the idea and was very adamant about moving forward with something. The street idea got boggled down because of the municipal court idea of having to change all their forms. That got kind of just too muddy right there. But when the idea of renaming Rio Vista Park, which is in transition now as we speak, and it's being renovated and remodeled, it became much clearer that that was the easy route to take. So, but again, I want to say to Mr. and Mrs. Padron, aquí estamos por ustedes todavía hasta este día con nuestro corazón. And to all the Padron family, Johnny Padron, I have a lot of respect for you for what you're doing. And it was unfortunate that this happened because I never would have met the Padron family. But they are a wonderful, close-knit family, and it's an honor again to be here. And having said that, Matt Baldwin and Brian Bilsma and all those folks involved. You know, looking at Jaime, that smile will forever be there from way back when he and I hung out at Edison Junior High School. But long story short, you know, I'm glad to be here and be a part of it. And having said that, I would like to at least make the motion to approve this item and welcome any other comment.
I have
Second.
one question. We have a motion to approve by Mr. Silvas and a second by Mr. Hirschfield. Carl White, our Parks Recreation Manager, can you give me some sort of idea of how the park was named to begin with and how long the park has been there?
The park has been there since the early 70s. It was acquired through a bond election, bond funding. The park was named in 1974 as Rio Vista Park. I'm not sure exactly why. Originally, before that, it was called Park Site B. But then I think there was a little bit of contention about the name of the park, and they settled on something easy because it was the Rio Vista neighborhood. That's my guess. But
Water view of the water.
Yes.
Is that?
That's it.
I'm just trying to go on the name and whatnot.
Very good.
Okay. For my part, Mr. and Mrs. Padron, outstanding individual. Sincerest apologies from all of us. It was a very sad day, but you can smile in the fact that he was loved by so many, and he obviously was loved by God. He takes the best. No other comments?
Comment or
Yes,
question?
Mr. Alexander.
Mr. White, in 30 years, I would like my grandchild to be able to visit that park and understand why it's named how it's named. Will there be an epitaph or a biography, a plaque, something that describes the sacrifice
we'll
of
have
this gentleman?
We'll have a dedication plaque at this location. We possibly could add another plaque that maybe has an image of his face and a little bit of explanation of why the park is named what it is.
Okay, that's important. I think
With the brick wall there, they can put various plaques. God forbid that we have any need to, but it could be done with the way it's designed.
that's good. That I think that's very necessary that we think that much further ahead, 100 years from now. That's how we have to think. That's how this
Any other questions from council?
memorializes.
If not,
Thank you.
I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Okay. Moving along, item number 12, consideration of approving an amendment to vision plan component of the San Angelo Comprehensive Plan update adopted in 2009, specifically properties situated south and east from the intersection of Dan Hanks Lane and South Chadbourne Street and extending eastward on the south side of South Chadbourne Street and continuing to Old Eola Road, then southward along Loop 306, encompassing the existing city limits and properties situated just outside the current city limits sign. And Jeff at our planning department is going to present the issue.
Good morning, Council. As Ms. Farmer had stated, this is a vision plan amendment. I'll get you right to the options that you have for this particular request to approve this as presented and recommended by Planning Commission, remand this back to the Planning Commission for further discussion, or deny the proposed vision amendment on a property-by-property basis. If you so choose, we can get into those options later on if you'd wish. This is just a map of the current vision plan now. The light blue color on here is intended for campus or institutional land uses. You'll find the area that I'm mousing over now is the Goodfellow Air Force Base area that's been planned for. The gray on this map indicates industrial and the yellow indicates neighborhood. The pink you see centered around the planned thoroughfares and existing thoroughfares are neighborhood centers, and the red is intended for commercial type development. The lighter shade of green you see on here is rural development, which is, I should mention, is one of the predominant land uses in this particular area. The process staff took to go about doing this amendment as well as other ones, we did do a field survey of the area through vehicle survey, lot by lot, to observe current land use patterns. We had discussion and consultation with engineering, stormwater, water utilities, MPO, and TxDOT on this particular issue. We researched regarding historical land use patterns, aerial photos, and past zoning histories of the properties where applicable, and took a look at the examination of the current vision plan, looking at the strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities. The proposed amendment was reached based upon the data and findings from this study. Staff does recommend approving this amendment, and Planning Commission recommended approval of these series of amendments 6-0 at the May meeting. This is a land use map of the area. The lighter shade of green indicates a higher density residential usage similar to that of a lower, more intense, more densely developed neighborhood. The blue indicates vacant or field type uses for agricultural purposes. The red on here indicates a more industrial type base. The lighter green appears also some there's a few houses along Chadbourne Street. And then the predominant, this purple is the other category of residential uses, which was generally low density, where folks will have a lot of acreage and maybe a field associated with their home. The red line running through here, I should point out, is the city limits line. As it exists today, this area was annexed into the city limits. This kind of boot, if you will, of San Angelo was annexed into the city limits around 1997. We took a look at this area. There were 49 parcels of agricultural or field usage. There was 100 parcels of higher density neighborhood type development, 13 industrial service contractors or properties, and 119 lower density residential properties. There were 3 personal service businesses and 3 vacant commercial parcels as well. What staff and the Planning Commission would recommend council adopt to be this type of configuration for the vision plan map. This was really brought about. We've got a couple of proponents that are here today that would probably like to speak on this. They'd taken a look at some properties in this area here, south of Chadbourne Street before it turns into 1223, and just east of there where you may know Basic Energy is out that way. A couple of folks in that area asked us to take a look at the vision plan, and as a result of that study, we looked at maybe modifying the vision plan into a configuration such as this to really capitalize on the need for industrial in this community, given that there's a lot of areas now, and it's a very popular commodity for folks looking to get real estate that is, zoned for that industrial use. The current vision plan did offer a rather stark transition between industrial right into neighborhoods, so this utilizes these planned collector streets indicated by the dashed lines on here to really utilize that as a growing industrial hub, given that there are really no vacant industrial properties in this area right now. In addition to that, the comprehensive plan speaks to diversifying industrial areas of the city with commercial zoning. When taking a look at this intersection, staff found that with the base right across the street, this is really a missed opportunity right now. There's a chance here for some type of public-private partnership that you'll see at many other bases throughout the country, where private contractors work with the base. Right now, it's encoded for this particular area for rural development. That's really a missed opportunity that we saw as staff for some folks to come in and maybe contract with that base and do work there. So we wanted to provide that opportunity, as well as add some industrial connections here that would allow for that opportunity for folks as well. With that, if there's any general questions, this is really the first amendment we'd had a chance to gather your feedback from the other series of amendments we had done. This one was the first one we really had a fresh chance to gather council's feedback and really incorporate that into an amendment. The other ones were so far along we weren't able to really get your feedback on those, and it's been a while since we've done that, so this is really our first effort into that. So in terms of what's there, you'll find a lot of properties on the east side of Chadbourne where it loops back into 1223 are more of a neighborhood-oriented development. Right now they're encoded for just rural development, but it's much more dense than that, so we felt strongly about adding that as neighborhood, so as folks come in and want to do subdivisions of their property, they're able to do zone changes that are in accordance with the neighborhood type development as well. So we also were thinking of that type of use when doing this, and we'd expanded some of the neighborhood centers at the nodes to allow folks to do higher density residential or maybe lighter commercial opportunities. We'd talked with a few realtors in town, and they really felt strongly that corner properties are really marketable in terms of neighborhood serving businesses, and there's a few folks here that would like to speak on this as well.
Jeff, in simple layman's term, the reason that we're doing this is to come in line with the vision plan, is that correct?
Yeah, the real reason this had come about was we've been approached on a property, or a representative for a property owner here and over here as well. We just try to take a look at the entire area to see what's going on out there. We'll try to update this as often as possible. The last to reflect the current trends and anticipated trends. The last one was updated in 2009. So as we have folks come to us with proposals, we'll really take a look at areas and see what's worked and what hasn't worked, and try to mesh somewhere in the middle with those.
Mr. Vardaman, Mr. Self, do y'all have any comments to make on this item?
I do.
Questions?
I do. Show me the city limits again, please.
You'll find the city limits running right along almost the street right-of-way line for FM 1223, and then encompassing much of this neighborhood, and then running back up along on the edge of the base.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Hirschfield?
I've been a little harsh on you on the vision plan in the past, but I generally like this, and I think you've done well on this, and I think you've taken some of the comments to heart and really done well. I guess my only question is, you've got that red stretch right there on Chadbourn, right where it takes the turn going to the FM. Is there a reason why that's red versus industrial? Then I guess the follow-up on that is, I know Basic's sitting right around there, I think right there somewhere, and does that allow and comply with what would be fitting their needs for their business and their industry?
Sure. Within the commercial designation, the comprehensive plan is suggested to be commercial. Sometime it's ultimately up to Planning Commission and the City Council to decide what type of commercial, but certainly a heavy commercial would fit the Basic energy business out there for what they're doing at this time. It wouldn't cover the fabrication of materials and things like that, simply repairs. Actually making or doing that type of work requires the industrial zoning, but to our knowledge and from our there was a case out there a couple years ago where they put a cellular communications tower on the property. They'd indicated to us at that time there's no manufacturing there, so a heavy commercial zone would definitely work and fit within that vision plan. The rationale for this general area here is generally as folks there's an entrance to the base awfully close to here. As folks leave the base, there may be opportunities. I know there's an existing, you can get your hair cut out there right now, and there's some other types of businesses, but they're more geared for industry and not really focused at folks potentially leaving the base. We just felt that there may be an opportunity for some folks to really capitalize on that market of folks leaving the base about to go home, and on this future planned neighborhood this way that folks may want to stop and do more general retailing needs that wouldn't really fit within the goal of the industrial section.
Are there any other questions from council? Mr. Silvas?
Jeff, is there still a golf driving range right there on Chadbourn Street next to that barber shop or somewhere around there?
Yeah, we've done the field service there. There's some nets up there. I did notice a for sale sign or for a rent sign. I didn't notice an active open driving range. There was some paintballing going on out there as well, which is a good use for a lot of folks that go to the base. They may want to go and unload some paintballs on people, but there was that out there, but there was no active driving range though.
Okay, now what is this red dotted line right here going across? Yes.
The dotted lines on here indicate planned projections of thoroughfares. So as folks come and do subdivisions of their property, we've got the thoroughfare plan to ensure the street network is in accordance with the development out there as well in the subdivision ordinance. This is a planned major arterial connector that would link up from the the Grand Canal area off to the west, much further off the screen, that would link up to the Chadbourn area at some point in the future.
Okay, because I was confused with the city limits line and thinking this was city limits and the other one looks totally different, so you answered my question. That's really all I had.
Any other questions? Comments? Anyone in the public wish to speak to this item?
I'm Brandon Sanders with Steve Eustace Company. We've been working in this area quite a bit with the recent activities. We've actually been looking all over town, and when these companies come in, they basically have the same type uses. It's either a light manufacturing or a heavy commercial. What we've been running into is there's really only two areas out there that are large in scope. This area, there's been a lot of traffic in this area, and then up northeast where the railroad tracks are, which I think ultimately will be for more heavier manufacturing. So what we're running into is trying to find places that we can put them in specific areas. And this would work very well because it would be an extension of what's already existing there. We found this just in a general search in the area. We found that the vision plan was neighborhood. The current zoning is R&E for the most part. So it would still have to go through zoning requirements, but the vision plan needed to change because, you know, it's going to be very difficult to find a housing project that's going to go right behind the existing industrial. So I thought that the best way to meet the needs out there, or potentially meet the needs out there of these companies, is to find an area that you can expand that has a current use similar to that. And I think this area would be definitely a high focus point.
Thank you, Mr. Sanders. Council have any questions?
Brandon, do you think that this encompasses, you kind of see my focus on this thing. I would love to see actually a little more gray.
Right.
Is what I would like to see. I mean, but I'm not going to complain too much, but I want your opinion on that. I mean, do you feel that this is kind of sufficient for the type of area and the type of companies that will need to, type of thing we'll need to draw people in?
Yeah, I mean, for now, for sure. I mean, we don't know how many are coming, but this area of change, I would say, is probably 200 acres of the gray area that's going to be added. So for now, maybe we might have to have this discussion again before too long. I don't know. I had just talked to Jeff in the planning and said, what can we do with this area? You know, what do you see? And that's kind of what they had come back with. I too would like to see the highest zoning you could get in that area, because I think it's going to be, you know, a mixture of light industrial and heavy commercial. I'd say a majority of the companies that have been coming in are heavy commercial for the outside storage, for the office, warehouse, industrial, or I mean office, warehouse, and yard. The red areas would still allow that. So, and then they've tried to add, or we've tried to come to an agreement of how you could add transitional areas and get back to the residential or neighborhood. I would like to see it continue further, but you know, for now, that appears to be sufficient. And that's outside of city limits. I mean, a majority of that's outside of city limits, too, for the planning.
Well, I mean, the industrial type, that's what you have out there.
Correct.
That is, it's just commonplace out there, so
and there's not many places, I mean, there's really just a handful left, and there's a high demand for that area. They want to be all together. What I'm concerned about and what we're starting to see is can't find anything out here that meets what they need, so we're finding spots on Chadburn or inside city, and it's just causing some congestion, some problems. Outside edge of city limits, easy access to highways, already existing, seems like a pretty good fit. And I'm just, and I'd come today, they did a great job. I mean, they've put a lot of work into this, and I'm just here to answer some questions as far as market's concerned if you need anything else.
Are you needing a motion, Ms. Mayor?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Mr. Sanders. Being no other comments, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion for approval of this amendment to the vision plan component.
I'll second.
Motion has been made by Mr. Silva, second by Mr. Vardaman. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. At this point, I would like to ask for a quick 10-minute break.
Thank you.
Get started, AJ, I need to do something. I've checked with legal. I'm going to open up this part of the meeting. We're going to open up public comment. We have some folks here that wanted to speak to us, public comment section, and they were here, but they missed their cue to come up. So asking who's going to be the spokesperson to step right on up. Come up and state your name, and we'll hear your portion of public comment.
Good morning. My name is Eva Horton, and I'm here on behalf of Fairmount Cemetery. I'm the chairman of the board, and there are 3 other board members here as well. And I apologize for missing the public comment. Didn't quite understand how it worked. We just want to make a plea to be considered when it comes to budget time. about water and about trees. It's must be apparent to everybody who drives down Avenue N because we get phone calls about the dead trees in Fairmount, which everybody knows for years has been an absolutely beautiful park-like setting, and now we have brown trees sprinkled throughout. And we've been very diligent about being careful about paying attention to the budget in terms of watering. But now we're getting paid back for it. And we'd like to be considered when it comes time in terms of water. But now we have another problem in that we've got to remove those trees because they're unsightly. And that's expensive. That's very expensive. So when it comes time to budget, please, please, please consider helping us out in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Horton. At this time, I would like to ask the city manager in our budget preparations if we can look at the possibility of some water trucks, for trees to assist. That's city property. It's a part of our history, and I'd like to move it forward to an agenda during the July period, if that's okay. Yes, Mr. Alexander?
Add the possibility of a drip system to that. Drip systems are very, very efficient.
Okay.
Very efficient.
Adequate, yes.
So.
Any other comments with reference to our cemetery and the water and the trees? Let's give our budget analysts folks some time to work it up and see possibly what could be done with, like we were doing on the Santa Fe with saving the trees.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor Pro Tem, can I say something real quick?
Sure.
Every time Aaron Valenzuela stands up, there seems to be some kind of light shining or something. It's kind of blinded me, but I believe there's a stone on her finger that she's wearing now. So I wanted to congratulate her. And
we need to see, hand in the air.
She's engaged to be married, and she's carrying this big old red
As
stone
long
on
as he
her.
doesn't let you leave town, that's, let's see, the hands in the air.
So please refrain.
Congratulations.
She warned me not to do that, but of course.
Okay.
I don't listen.
You listen to people.
Being no other comment or any more public comment, let's move forward. We're at item 13, public hearing to receive public comments for and against annexation of certain properties, and situated immediately west and southwest of San Angelo and encompassing a vacant 24.484 acre tract extending northwest from Mills Pass Drive and located directly west of an 8.995 acre tract annexed to the city limits on March 5th, 2013, that is the proposed Prestonwood addition, Section 2.
That is
and the presentation is by our Interim Director of Development Services, A.J. Fowler.
Thank you. Yes, the item that we're looking at today is concerning the piece of property shown on the slide here. Again, the recent annexation from March that's referenced in the caption is this strip of land just to the east. This is just shy of 25 acres. It is considered to be an extension of the Prestonwood addition, which currently exists to the southeast of this property. Today, we are simply taking our second required public comment period. And based on our timetable that you approved for us back in May, we will be introducing an ordinance to you at your meeting on July 16th with a second reading on August 6th. So today we're simply here to take any public comments so that we can meet our mandated requirements in that way. And of course, if you have any questions, I can answer those.
I'm sorry, I cannot hear you.
I said, of course, if you have any questions, I can answer those as well.
Motion to approve.
No action is needed.
Just no action, okay.
But I appreciate your enthusiasm.
Thanks, guys. Any questions of AJ on this item? Any questions of anyone in the audience? Okay, we'll move along. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Would you please enunciate that, since this is to receive public comment, that you are opening the floor
Didn't I ask for public?
Well,
I thought
no.
I did.
Yes, please.
Public comment on this item? There being none, we'll move on. I thought that's what I said. Okay, maybe I'm just thinking up here. That's tough for me to do, is think and talk at the same time. Item 14. Public hearing to receive citizen input on requested projects to be considered for funding with grant year 2013 Community Development Block Grant and Home Investment Partnership Grant funds from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and discussion and deliberation on funding allocations for said funds. Presentation is by Neighborhood and Family Services, and you're not Bob Saws.
No,
but
I'm
I
Mari.
see him charging right up behind you, so. Okay.
I'm Mari Rodriguez, the Senior Program Coordinator.
Okay.
Let me see. Okay, we're here this morning to get council direction on project funding for the federal CDBG and home grants. We provided spreadsheets with our staff recommendations. We'd like to step through each line item and allow council to mark up the budget as you see fit. Recommendations are based on citizen input obtained through public meetings and our 5-year strategic plan. We did receive an increase in CDBG funds this year, and the home grant was cut by $23,000. And here's just a funding profile over the past 10 years. You can see clearly that there's an overall downward trend, which has forced us to adjust our programs accordingly. For CDBG, we have a total of $779,584 to allocate. We're recommending $155,917 for admin, $126,985 for rehab delivery costs, which helps pay for the 2 program coordinators managing the rehab programs. There is $177,969 we'd like to allocate for rehab projects, which include both homeowner and rental rehab projects. We've recommended $110,000 for emergency housing repairs, and these are grants up to $5,000 to address conditions posing health or safety risk. We've also recommended $20,000 for the Helping Hands program. This program replaced Christmas in April, and it's dedicated to assisting elderly homeowners with housing repairs. $150,713 will go to pay the Section 108 loan for producers in Rio Vista Parks. And lastly, we're recommending $38,000 for salary and benefits for 1 code officer who is dedicated to patrolling the 4 target neighborhoods. Do you have any questions? Or
I heard you say to rehab rental properties.
Mm-hmm.
Explain rental properties to me.
Well, based on our
that will be a loan to landlords to be able to fix up their properties to rent to low-income families. We would have an agreement with them to rent to low mod for about 5 to 7 years, depending on how much loan they get. And they would have to invest some of their money in the projects.
So you could put in their contract that of some form of rent management?
Yes.
Okay.
And in fact, they have to keep their rents down based on HUD numbers.
Okay.
They set the cap on rentals.
Okay.
And that would help alleviate some of the rental housing stock, that was the shortage of the rental housing stock that we're starting to see.
Okay. I have another question.
Bob, don't leave yet.
Sorry.
Mr. Hirschfield?
We've got an increase in the admin cost. We've got an increase in the rehab program delivery cost. But we've got a dramatic decrease in the rehab projects.
Yes, sir. That came from, we had prior year funds that we were able to use to do more houses, and do some of the blitz as well. So that's where that came from, the $378,000.
So 378 was
which we don't have anymore. We're
carryover
done.
from
Yes.
previous years.
Previous years, and we used them all up. We're basically, we have a zero balance now, so we're now was basically what we get every year is what we're using.
Okay, so less the carryover, what do you think you would have gotten last year? Less than
Less than that, probably. So
less than the 177.
Less than the 177. We had a little spike this year, and that was because a lot of people turned in a lot of cities turned in their unused funds, so they gave us a little bit of money. But the sequester actually cut us across the board.
I'm just trying to make sure that our money is actually going to the most amount of money is going for the best value for actual real projects as opposed to admin.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying we shouldn't be covering the admin. I'm in full agreement with that, but I just want to make sure we're getting the
We try, on the rehab program, Councilman, we try to keep it about 30%. That's what HUD asks us to do. We don't, there's not a cap. It's just like yourself. Your interest is to ensure that we have more projects than admin.
Right.
Same with HUD. They do the same thing.
Okay.
So we fight that as well. We try to balance that.
Okay, good.
Is your admin fee increase, and I realize it's a slight increase, the forms that you use for rental properties, the increase in the cost there, what's the reason for increasing?
In the admin? That's basically just the general increase in cost of salaries and benefits, because we get some raises once in a while.
Well, they shouldn't get salaries or benefits. Council don't get a salary, so why should they get salaries? Just kidding, lighten the mood up
Actually,
here a little
that
bit.
amount actually does include the 3% we expect to get, well, hope to get, not expect, but hope to get. We don't know what we'll get, so we have to figure that 3%.
Any other questions from council? Mr. Silvas?
Bob, where, does all of these funds include I know that this past year we helped out some folks with their roofs. So where does the roofing?
This is nothing to do with the roofs. That was a local grant that we got from the Health Foundation, so you don't see it here. This is stuff that goes, this goes to HUD, and that's just, they don't, although we mention it in our annual action plan, we don't have to allocate on it. We don't have to deliberate on it.
Okay.
So.
Do you think that's coming, will that come?
We have to apply. We'll have to apply again and see.
It's not even in the conversation, so just never mind, no.
Any other questions from council? Any questions from public? Okay.
Okay, for the home funds, we have a little over $345,000 to allocate. We're recommending $72,812 for admin, $16,627 for duplex maintenance at the Forest Park duplexes, $115,000 for down payment and closing cost assistance for first-time home buyers, $51,000 for tenant rental assistance for special needs clients, and $90,000 for our community housing development organization, which automatically receives 15% of the home funds per HUD regulation. Do you have any questions on the home funds?
Related question.
Mr. Hirschfield?
Going back a couple years ago, Bob, we had, and this, I'm going to tie this to the first-time home buyers thing. We had some people that, some of those that struggled to pay for homeowners insurance and for property taxes. And we said, you really need to make sure that they're putting that escrow.
That has happened. We actually have all our banks provide escrow, or they have a savings account that's tied to the project or to the individual home buyer in order to save enough money to pay for the insurance and for the taxes into the year. So yes, we're covered now.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a question with reference to the elderly duplex maintenance, and jumping up to $16,627 instead of the allocated the year before $10,000. Is that due to wear and tear?
Yeah, it is.
Of the renter, or just the age of the property?
Age of the property. We're looking at renovating some, or replacing a couple of air conditioners. We've been having some problems with those, so we want to. It's our responsibility to fix them and replace them.
I have to ask: is this property that the city owns outright, or is this through PHA or the city?
It's money that we get. These 10 units are actually city properties. We got them from PHA. One time we lent them some money, they forfeited. We got the money, we got them back, and now we rent them out to those disabled
Any other
folks.
questions from council? Okay, Mr. Silvas.
Bob, back to the first-time home buyers assistance. Is that does that affect like five families, 4? What the 115,000 will service how many?
About 13 to 14 families.
Okay.
These are new home buyers, so it's
about $10,000 a family.
About $10,000 a family.
Okay.
Down payment money.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Move on.
Oh, that's it.
That's it?
Yes, we're going to come
Okay.
back with the next month for approval prior to submitting to HUD.
Okay. No more comments from council. Do we have public comment on this issue? Okay, it's not an action item, correct? All right, we need to move along. Item 15, discussion on the City of San Angelo Code of Ordinances, Section 8.105, noise from a motor vehicle regarding enforcement measures of loud stereo music emitting from a vehicle. And I see Deputy Chief Martinez and Police Chief Tim Vasquez. Welcome.
Welcome, thank you.
Tell
First of
us
all, I
how
want
you
to
would do
apologize
this.
for not being here on June the 4th, the last council meeting we had. I missed the agenda, so I'm here. I'm Robert Martinez, Assistant Chief for your Police Department.
Tell us how you would enforce this.
Well, I'm pretty unclear about what it is, why it was brought up, or what we need to know, so I need to ask.
Can I preface your comments?
Please do.
I would like to ask Mr. Silva, since this was his
It
item
was,
before.
you know, we're here to represent the public. And when I get 2 or 3 phone calls about the noise emitting from vehicles driving through neighborhoods and rattling windows, I said, well, you know, if you'd like me to, I'd bring it up for discussion to see what our ordinance reads, how it reads, does it have teeth, does it not? And it was no way was I trying to blindside anybody or just surprise anybody. We just wanted clarification. I'm talking about the citizens out there, wanted to know what's going on out there. And are we ticketing these vehicles? Are we not? Or what? You know, what is the ordinance? That's what the bottom line. That's what it was all about.
Well, okay, I understand. The ordinance that we have is noise from a motor vehicle, and I provided y'all with a copy of it. But it pretty much anything coming from a vehicle needs to have a permit through the chief or his designee. And are we enforcing it? Yes, we are. I did some research with municipal court, and we've never had one go to court to an actual jury trial or anything like that. They've all played out. Checked since May of last year till June the 1st of this year, there was a total of 8 that were issued, and every one, with the exception of the last one, which is still up in the air because he's got time to appear, we do address them, yes, sir.
So, I guess so. If there's, you know, I've pulled up to a store where there's a car just blaring away. So if a police officer were to pull up next to that car, then he could actually cite the driver?
He actually could, yes, sir. And that's normally what happens. I do receive the same phone calls. Matter of fact, I received them from you, as well. And we address them when we can.
Sure.
Some of those, by the time we get there, they're gone, of course. But we do address them, and we use this city ordinance to address most of them. We actually had a project several years ago where the officers went to specific locations in town, problem areas, and in that 30 days, they didn't work it every day, but when they did work it, they issued 30, and every one of them played out and took care of their business. But we are talking about redoing it again. With this that was brought up on the other day, and with this happening, that might be one of our special projects for a target area, if you would say, for in the near future. So we targeted some of the very busy areas before, like Sherwood Way, Knickerbocker, and some of those other areas. But if you got ideas, send them to me, and I'll be glad to get them to our people to get a plan put together.
I have a question. In trying to look this up, Google up information on the state before we can have an ordinance, it would have to be a state law in order for you to enforce this. Is that correct? There would have to be a state law on our books referencing noise ordinance.
Since we are, and council member, we are a home rule city, so we have the authority to enact ordinances that under our police power that do not conflict with state law or the Constitution. So we could proceed in this area without state law, as long as whatever we enact doesn't conflict with state law or the Constitution under our police powers.
Okay, then the next question, since I didn't read the existing ordinance, but are we covered in there by something that's called, distraction to the driver, that you can cite, that's a heavier and a heftier fine than the noise ordinance? in some cities, because the distraction to the driver is you can't hear an emergency vehicle, an ambulance, or someone, screaming, you're about to run over me or something like that. Does the current ordinance address any of that?
To my knowledge, I don't think it addresses that part, but it'll fit. This particular ordinance works.
So it works.
Well, it would be, I would imagine, if you're thinking the transportation code, state law applies, and the distraction being the offense to a moving vehicle. And reading this section, it appears to not distinguish between a vehicle that's being operated or a vehicle that's parked. It just says, so we would look to see if we could incorporate that element as an offense.
Okay, I mean, I like the idea of it being a stronger penalty if we can do that, because you seem to get their attentions more. And not only is it a nuisance to drivers or people in their homes, they're a nuisance and a danger on the streets if they cannot hear approaching emergency vehicles or other vehicles.
Traffic offenses are limited under the transportation code to, as a Class C misdemeanor, to a $200 fine. So,
and a noise ordinance fine is how much?
That would be, according to what the municipal court fine schedule is, but I believe that it's also $200. But if we could examine whether the fine could be increased, but the maximum fine, since this doesn't relate to health and safety, under the sense of a public nuisance, which is a $2,000 fine, would be $500. So we'll explore that.
Any other comments from council on this subject? Mr. Alexander?
Yeah, it just so happens I was on Main Street, turned on to Beauregard and headed down Beauregard for 10 minutes. Somebody followed me yesterday with bass so loud, hurt my ears in my car. And I thought, how do you enforce that? And looked for police officers everywhere. None. I was looking for one to pass, but it was so loud, I thought, well, they'll catch him. It never happened. So how do you enforce it?
Well, I'll add to that. It is sometimes a difficult law to enforce. If you're committing a violation, it's like red light violations. Nobody runs a red light when there's a police car sitting there. And so when the police car is driving down the street and somebody's thumping, that police officer has to identify which vehicle is emitting that sound.
Yeah.
And in order to do that. And so we pull up at a light, we hear the noise, we start looking around, there's 20 cars around us, and the volume goes down. And we don't know which one. Now, this is like any other city ordinance, though. If a citizen sees a violation, the citizen has a right to get the license plate information and go to municipal court and file a charge for this violation. They can do that. And sometimes it's easier for them to catch these people doing it than us. Now, since May of last year, you were asking about the cost. There was 8 violations, and total fines assessed was $1,213. So you can kind of average that out. But it is a difficult law, so for us to always catch them, it's very difficult. We encourage the citizens to get the information, and they can file a charge as well.
This
Mr.
was a
Vardaman?
temporary license plate, blowing, flapping, and I was thinking.
Mr. Vardaman?
See, I don't think this is even applicable. This is for the old sound trucks that you used to have to get a permit for to go around and whenever you're displaying or the ice cream trucks that were disturbing neighborhoods. I think what we're talking about and this ordinance is 2 different things.
And you're right on the permit. I will not sign a permit for somebody to have a speaker system that's going to play music and drive around in their car for personal use. We have signed permits for campaigns and the ice cream trucks, and that's it.
Right.
And so this ordinance kind of is directed towards that.
Right.
However, we do not have an obstacle in using this ordinance in enforcement of the law of a vehicle operating with the noise coming from a motor vehicle.
I think if they ever fight it, it'll get kicked out because the intent's not there.
Any other comments from council?
That would be a legal thing.
Question?
I guess, it annoys me as much as it annoys everybody else, all the boom, particularly when you go fill up your car with gas and car pulls up next to you and it's just rattling everything. But, it is what it is. I was a kid and yes, I had loud music in my car too. So we do grow out of it. I know, we do grow out of some of that stuff. And I guess I want to make sure that while this is important, and I think it's great for y'all to continue to focus on this stuff, don't focus on it so much that you lose focus on the big things that are really important, and that's crime and other items like that. And that's my only comment on that. So
Absolutely.
I think it's a balance that you guys need to be. Y'all know the pulse. You know the tone of what's going on out there, and just ensure that you keep that pulse and keep that tone, and that's my thing. So good job.
Any other questions from council?
Well,
Mr. Alexander?
This is complicated, right? In New York City, the window washers were, the mayor got after them, and the thing is, be unpredictable. That's how you do it. You set these patrols up. If you're unpredictable, they don't know when you're out there. It seems to work all the time. If you're predictable, you never enforce, or you enforce a certain time or whatever, it won't work.
We received complaints of this a few years back, enough from some of the council too, that we decided to do the unpredictable. And we were at a point where it was costing me more money to have this project to do than it was to find violators to cite. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And so we had unmarked cars on Friday and Saturday night driving up and down Sherwood Way, because that's where our complaints were coming from, residents along Sherwood Way. And we did that for a few weekends, and I think we wrote 6 or 8, 6 tickets in 4 weekends, and I had overtime being paid out. So you have, again, it's that balance of
you probably netted at 0.
Probably. Yeah, probably negative. It was probably negative, yeah.
Are we going to get apps for the police department where we can report loud sound from a vehicle, here's the license plate, here's the location, and you get it without the hassle of calling the police dispatcher and getting through that? Also, panhandlers, just general things like that we can say, look, there's a panhandler here. Boom, send it in.
We have multiple apps. One of the ones that we use is TipSoft, and my social media officer is not here right now, or I'd have her get up and tell you a little bit more about that. But we do have those apps available, but we don't get a lot of use of them. Our citizens don't use those.
Okay, this was conversation item, discussion item. Is there any comment from the public on this item?
Charlotte, I just want to say, Chief Vasquez and Chief Martin, thank you for the update. Again, it was those taxpayers who brought it to my attention, and I did my due diligence. There it is. There it was. We discussed it, and you know where they're coming from. So
Absolutely, and always feel free, if you'd like, you can just have them call us, and we'll always visit with them.
yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Moving along, item 16, discussion and possible action regarding fiscal year 2013-2014 budget preparation. Now, before we get into this, I have to ask the question, is this the beginning? I mean, are we going to have the workshops on the budget item? Why are we looking at this today, Mr. Dane? Or Mr. Valenzuela?
It is just to give us an overview of what we'll be having coming up as far as the future couple of months in July and August. Basically, what this is an overview, and it also kind of gives you an indication of where we are on the different funds at this point. So really, it's just an overview.
Well, I was just looking at it from the standpoint being the last meeting for some folks, that if this was something that we should have an overview with the new city council.
We could definitely.
It's really a schedule is what
It's
For discussion and possible action.
But it's a schedule. It's basically just laying out the schedule. Isn't that
Okay.
what it is?
Yes, it is. And we wanted to limit, of course, any type of discussion, to be honest with you, as far as any decision that will be made on the budget. And you're absolutely right. We wanted to make sure we had the new council on board also.
Okay.
But this is just an overview.
Discussion, go right ahead, please.
Great, good morning. I do have a calendar to go over with y'all to let you know what staff has been working on so far. There's been a lot of homework done and get you up to speed on what we've been working on and then what we have coming. And we do have an overview of some of the larger major funds for background that we can provide as well. So starting off, of course, in March, we had meetings with directors, budget kickoff. We continued on into April and had many opportunities for budget training. This was an opportunity to indicate to directors and managers and other budgeters matching the strategic priorities with the budget process and city manager direction. So we continue to have those meetings, and that got us on into June, where we started meeting with the budget committee, started having budget reviews. We've not completed those yet. Of course, we had that emergency on Thursday, so rescheduling some of those. So those will continue to happen and move forward into July as we start budget discussions and getting into some detail and some priorities and issues discussed there. And then in August, we'll introduce the budget ordinance, second meeting in August, and adopt it in September. Some more detail on the budget process of what's been going on. In April, of course, we had the revenue estimates, and it was where staff and budget get together and draft what revenue we hope to bring in the fiscal year 14. In May, we went into expense estimates, particularly focusing on performance measures, matching those strategic priorities to the expense budget, and identifying what divisions are doing to help meet those strategic priorities. So continuing on there. And then, as I stated, budget committee reviews. The budget committee is Mr. Valenzuela, Mr. Dane, myself, and Laura Brooks, and Rick Weiss. And so we'll continue those meetings, meeting with each and every division, going over their core functions and performance measures, and making sure it ties in with what we're discussing with council.
That's fine, Morgan. I just wanted to make sure that we did an overview, kind of have an indication of where we're going in the future as far as the next couple of months. And that's what we were looking for. At this point, since we won't be looking at anything as far as any decisions, I would just recommend that we end it there.
Any questions from council? Any public comments? Okay, we're not taking any action on this. We're just being advised the review process.
Do we need a motion to approve the schedule? Do you need the schedule approved?
It's not necessary. As it follows state law, it would be redundant, I think.
As long as we've been notified and the public's been notified, these are the dates that we're looking at budget. No questions from the public, so we will move along. 17, update and presentation regarding the Hickory Aquifer Water Supply Project.
Okay, bear with me a minute here, and let's see if I can find my presentation. Need a little help. Here we go. Huh?
A computer guru, are you?
That's me. Computer
He's head of our
guru.
IT. Yeah. He's head of IT.
I thought we did good. We actually have some slides today. So I just want to talk to you a little bit about, our Hickory Water Supply project, kind of where we're at, what we've got done, what's coming, kind of go over the fund and the money that's spent, and then we'll just kind of open it up to questions. So it shouldn't take real long. Let's go over the current and completed projects. The well field piping, that was kind of the first part of the project that tied all the existing 9 wells together with piping to get to out to the transmission part. Excuse me. The 30-inch transmission main, 99.8% of the pipe is installed. They like a little bit at the river, a little bit at the water treatment plant. They still are in the process of filling the line, and they'll have to still do the testing of all of the pressure testing and the back tees and stuff. Booster pump station project, which includes the fitting of the 9 existing wells, the booster pump station, the 2 storage tanks, and all the telemetry stuff, is 81% complete. Here's kind of a picture of The river crossing, that's one portion that's left on a 30-inch transmission main. I don't envy them that job. River crossings are always a problem. This picture, if you'll notice the red line, I don't know if you can read or not, it says location of proposed 24-inch water main. This is where the blue line and the red line kind of come together. The 30-inch transmission main, the main project, kind of stopped right there until we got a little further down the line on the sizing and the treatment options and things that are going. So this portion still needs to be laid up to get to the new proposed location of the groundwater treatment plant. And then that line that goes from, let's see if I can get something here. No. Anyway, the line that goes to the north up there from the groundwater treatment plant up to, there's a East Avenue J, if you can read it, a 39-inch transmission main that brings in our current surface water supplies. This portion here is what we've added. If there's any blending to be done or blending options, this is the line that we get that process. If we need to blend water prior to the treatment plant, this is how that will be done. So that's kind of the last remaining parts of the transmission main besides the testing. Picture of the well pump installation and water tank at well number 6. For storage, kind of helps the system float, so all the wells will basically pump into this tank and this will go to the distribution system. Okay, this gets us to, that's kind of where we're at and where we've been, and this is where we're going. Groundwater treatment facility. All of the plans have been approved by the TCQ, the Texas Water Development Board, and is currently out for bid. We're going to open those bids on June the 27th, 2013. We have an estimated cost of $29 million for the groundwater treatment facility. In talking, I don't think we're going to have the luxury we did when we bid the transmission main, that, you know, the bids are going to be a lot cheaper than we estimate. We're kind of crossing our fingers on this bid. As the way the economy's going, the workforce that's available, it's going to be tight. Wellfield expansion number 1. This back, council authorized for 5 to 7 new wells. This is that portion to expand the well field. It's advertised for bid. Those bids opened July the 11th, 2013. It's $7.5 million for the 5 new wells. We're going to have some options depending on where the money comes in. We're going to have a firm bid for 4 and then add for 5, 6, and 7. And we'll go as far as the money will let us go. Coming later in the fall, well field expansion number 2, which is currently in design. This is the equipping of the pumps, the piping, the access roads for the new wells, estimated $6.9 million. It's scheduled bid in the fall of 2013. So that kind of gets the rest of the pieces together to try to get it done. All right. Here's the Hickory Fund summary. This is funds that have actually been expended or committed funds on the loan from the Texas Water Development Board. We have the well field piping, that's complete. We spent $2,792,000 and some change. 30-inch transmission main project, that contracts for $39 million. Booster pump station is $12,853,000. Committed engineering funds, the Hickory project currently with encumbrances is $9,636,868. The WRT, West Water Resources Technology, rate of removal, plans and specs, as you remember, we approved. We went out for bid for an approved vendor for the media and the equipment. In that part of the bid, we paid for the plans and specs for their equipment to go into our building so we could finish the design of the groundwater treatment plant, and that's that $150,000 charge. There's a bond issuance cost of $172,251. And then there was miscellaneous money for, and I just listed some here. There's a long list. I think there was like 14 pages of stuff. It's easements, damages, pilot testing, surveys, title companies, equipment rental, well service, pilot testing, buildings, and assortment of stuff for a little over $2.2 million. So where we're at right now, total funds assigned to date is $69,824,634.62. That's,
What is the total money spent to date?
this is
69.
what is either spent or committed under contracts with an encumbrance.
So we have roughly $50 million.
I'm going to get that one on the next slide for what we have left. And
I have
what
a
we think
question
is-
on an item here.
Mr. Silvas?
On the engineering, the 9.6 million,
Yes, sir.
does that include salary, design, or what is it? What is that?
Okay, hang on just a minute. Okay, to answer your question, there's a long list of things. This is all the engineering services during construction. Includes design, the planning, the application process, all the environmental stuff, the geotechnical, the inspections during construction, O&M manuals, all the permits, the pilot testing, project management by the engineering, all the surveying that was necessary, all the testing, the water conservation plan, the water distribution modeling. So all of those things, they have, a big part of this that we normally don't see in engineering services is the construction management portion, the inspection services that are applied. They've had up to 3 inspectors full-time on this project all the time, dealing with all the inspection to make sure everything is put in and done according to plans and specs. We got the transmission main, the booster pump station.
Mr. Dixon?
And all of it.
I'm sorry, could you move the microphone closer or speak up, please?
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Okay. So it's all encompassing in that engineering cost.
I know that Will Wilde was there before you did, but does anybody remember if this amount was a certain percentage of the total amount for this project? Was it a 6% for the engineering? Are we on line as far as that goes? You have any idea?
I'm not real sure about that, Mr. Silvas. I know all of this was submitted to the Texas Water Development Board. Council approved everything. They approved all of these charges. So, we can get that percentage
Maybe
number.
later you can
Will
get
do.
back with me. I'd like to know
Well,
that.
I have a problem in the numbers that you provided for me, Mr. Valenzuela, last week, that you and Mr. Dane had provided a sheet of expenditures to date and had it categorized. And unfortunately, I didn't. I thought I had them in my briefcase
I
this
have
morning.
that number.
Well,
Now,
that engineering number was $11,200,000 and something thousand, and you're saying it's $9 million here.
Okay. Now, we're talking about the Hickory Fund money that's been spent. Prior to getting the loan, there was money spent for engineering that's not part of the Hickory money. And you're correct. The total to date to the engineering firm is $11,375,306.94.
And an additional $300,000 to pay for the engineering site consultant that we paid also. There was an additional $300,000.
The site consultant.
That's what you guys categorized to me, and I'm just kicking myself because I don't have those papers. There's 3 pages, and I ask for a total breakdown of what has been spent to date with reference to the Hickory.
Right.
And
That's-
those numbers, they don't add up with what I was given. So I'm
Well,
going to need an
this is,
explanation.
this is money from the Hickory loan that was paid for engineering. Prior to the loan, in the first part of the original contract and part of Amendment 1, and I think even in part of Amendment 2, was paid out of other funds that's not part of the Hickory project.
Okay. I don't guess I'm so much interested in what's a part of the loan as to what the total monies our city has spent to date with reference to the Hickory.
That's $11,375,306.94.
Yeah, 11 million and something. And go ahead with your presentation.
I'm sorry?
But that But that's engineering only. I mean, we've spent, because we paid the contractor, I would bet a significant portion of his $39 million.
Oh, yeah,
So,
yeah,
I mean,
right.
the point is, you're talking this 11 million. The 11 million is engineering only.
Right.
Right, and that's.
So what have we actually written a check for? I would guess is somewhere, without knowing the number, is going to be somewhere closer to this $65 million bucks.
Well,
Would be my guess.
This number with encumbrances for the contract amount, this $69 million is it. This is what is either spent or committed to spend to
Right.
finish out the contracts.
Mr. Dane, before we would reconvene from executive, can you get those copies that you and Mr. Valenzuela provided to me that I've left at home to look at, and I would be more comfortable? I'd like to know what the differences are. And then also, in our contract with the engineering, was it the 6% of the total package is to what we paid to them?
It wasn't a percentage. There wasn't a percentage involved as far as how much would be paid to the engineer. As Ricky just mentioned a while ago, also there's a breakdown as far as all the services that fall under engineering, and some of those aren't typical to what an engineering firm would actually do. We have project management and other items that are in there, and we'll be happy to pull that information that you had received, and we'll get into executive session also.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
Yes,
good.
ma'am.
Go ahead.
Okay.
I've got a question.
Yes, Mr. Vardaman?
Can I have a copy of all that? And
Sure.
then along with that, how many wells have we actually have online that's feeding this at this time?
We have 9 wells that they're equipping now, the original 9 wells.
Okay. And then we're also talking about adding an additional 5?
5 to 7 was authorized by council, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the remaining projects, it's kind of a breakdown of estimated cost and where we're at. As I said before, the groundwater treatment facility, we're estimated at $29 million. Wellfield expansion 1 at $7.5 million. Wellfield expansion 2 of $6.9. Remaining engineering contract of amount not to exceed of $6,852,000. So that gets the total remaining projects of about a little over $50 million. We have the assigned to date contract of $69,824. Total approved projects and estimated remaining were at $120,077,287.68. We have a Hickory loan amount of $120 million. If we're right on all the bids and they come in exactly as we've stated here, looks like we're going to be about $77,000 in the hole that the loan won't cover. We still have some contingencies in some of the contracts. We still have some interest that we're earning on the loan. So right now, that's kind of where we're shooting for and what we believe will come in. So until we open bids on the 2 projects that are out, this is kind of where we're set. That gets us to question and answer time.
Go back.
Go back.
You have a question? Rick, I think my only, if I would see any red flags right now is on the well expansion for 1 and 2.
Yes, sir.
When you're talking about estimate, man, that word scares me. So do you estimate the 7.5 million to be, could it be less by any reason?
This is engineer's probable cost.
So then there's a probability it could be more.
Or it could be less.
Or it could be less. Yeah. So we haven't
No.
nailed down or
This is our engineer's probable cost of these projects.
77,000 in the whole. You know, it's not that bad, but yeah, the estimates, that's where it kind of
Right.
concerns me somewhat.
And that's typical with all projects. You get an estimate or engineer's probable cost of what we think it's going to be. We do it on all of our other projects.
You know, you mentioned contingency. Did we not have a set amount set aside for an overage?
We have contingencies built into the current projects that we have for things that come up. We have $1.5 million in contingency under the transmission main and $500,000 of contingency in the booster pump station project. So depending on where that all finishes up, there should be some here to cover this $77,000.
So then that could be zero. I mean,
It could be.
Or should be, if it's that much money that we've got set aside extra.
We won't know until the bids are open.
Okay.
Will we have a copy of the contract, the engineering contract in executive session to review?
We do
Thank
have a
you.
copy.
Thank you.
When, we already have an estimation on the completion of the extra 5 wells, when will we have, call it an updated estimation? When the contractors that wins, when will they say, when will we know better? When will we award this contract?
It depends on when it awarded.
June 27th.
June 27th, we'll have the bids.
We'll have the bids, but
In the
how long till we
contract,
award?
we are allowing 365 days for the groundwater treatment plant. And on the wells, is it the same year?
365.
On the additional wells, that's also 365 days.
From the day we award?
From notice to proceed.
How fast will that happen? Notice to proceed will happen when?
We have to get the bids back. We have to get all their bonding information and all the stuff from the contractor. And Texas Water Development Board has to release the money. Until they release the money, we cannot issue the notice to proceed.
That's the problem.
That's the step to go
Yeah.
through.
We're running out of water November of 14 in our surface lakes and rivers. And if the Texas Water Development Board delays, that could really put us in a bind.
Well, we're not expecting a delay from Texas Water Development Board. There was like 3 weeks on getting the reviews done on these 2 projects and back to us, which is totally unheard of. Usually it's 60 to 90 days.
Okay.
So they are really
Good.
stepping up and trying to do right by our project. They understand our needs.
I have several questions.
Yes, Mr.
whenever you
Bartman.
get a chance. Do you want to go ahead? Do you want me to take off? Okay.
You have the floor.
With the wells that we have drilled, will they develop or give us the maximum amount of flow that we can get through the pipeline?
No, we can get more through than what these existing wells will do. The 9 existing wells are for probably a tad over 6 million gallons a day. But that is restricted by the agreed order with the Hickory Underground Water Conservation District. We can only extract maximum 500 gallons a minute.
Okay, so what is the purpose of the additional wells?
The additional wells is to, if we put in 5 more wells at another 500 gallons a minute per well, it'll get us to a little over 9 million gallons a day.
Well, can I explain this?
But we're restricted.
The
Just a minute.
base,
We're restricted per well.
Okay. And we're also restricted in the maximum amount that we can pull, are we not?
That's correct. And with our banked water,
Okay.
it all factors
At the
in.
maximum amount of wells that we have here, the maximum flow that we get through there, how long will it take us to get to the end result of our banked water and what's allowed to us?
I believe, well, I don't want to believe.
I know these answers. There's a base usage. The usage we use in our house in January, February, what are we using then? In the summer, we're using more water, but it's to water plants. But so we have a base usage. The current wells will cover 71% of the base usage. And so we can't even get enough water to supply to our houses and use normal water supply. So if it's yellow, let it mellow. If it's brown, flush it down. That's not good for San Angelo, to be in that situation in which we have to conserve water like that. So we added the extra wells to get us up to 100% or greater of base usage. We want to be around 110%. We have growth, and so we need to be higher than that. The 5 wells will barely get us there. 7's much more comfortable.
So that's why we're expanding the well field. The second question was how long? It'll take us about 5 years at 9,000 acre feet a year to use up all our banks. So we have about 5 years of water. We have about 37,000 acre feet, and if you do the math at 9,000, that's 4 years, but over 4 years we'll accumulate 1,750 acre feet per year. So over 4 years we'll get an extra year out of it. It's 5 years of water at base usage. So it's more than 5 years at 71%. It's
If
6 or
you're-
7 years.
You ask it, the wells that we have, maximum 6 million gallons a day will get us to 2026.
Okay. How much capacity will our filtration plant be able to take and filter and get to a potable type situation?
The original design for the water treatment plant was for the 6 million gallons a day. In the bid, we have an option for an additional train to get us to the additional 5 wells that we need.
Okay. Have you projected anything on what, under these circumstances, 1,000 gallons of water will cost us?
Okay, I'm gonna make some assumptions here to start with. We're talking at 6 million gallons a day continuous flow. With the rate and removal system, energy cost, I'm not putting any admin or anything else into this. And the cost from the water rights to the Ford Ranch that we have to pay for the water. We're looking at, and we're not talking about debt service right now. We'll get to that in a minute. Right now, we're looking at somewhere about $1.47 a thousand. Now, when you figure in debt service for 20 years, I mean, we borrowed money, we got to pay it back. That's an additional $3.81 a thousand for 6 million gallons a day. So if you add it all up together, you're looking at $5.29 a thousand, including the debt service.
Gallons, correct? 1,000 gallons?
Per 1,000 gallons, that's correct.
Okay.
So total one more time, $5 and what?
29
cents
per thousand.
per thousand.
Okay. And that will supply what percentage of our water at max rate? Saying that the plant can filter it.
We can filter the whole 6 million gallons. Now, give me that question one more time. That's not, that, if we're out of everything else, that won't get us by.
That's 71% estimated.
Okay.
Of basic.
So.
We need 9 million. We need a 10.5 million is what we need.
We need
for extra capacity.
We need a great big rain.
We could use that
yeah,
too.
Well, Paul, Mr. Alexander, I need some help here because it's limited as to what I understand in this, but I inquired on Sunday as to how many acre feet was in Ivy. And there was roughly just barely over 100,000 acre feet in Ivy. And if each city that is involved uses approximately 55,000 acre feet per year, that's 165,000 acre feet.
That's not right. We're using, San Angelo's using around 15,000 acre feet a year.
15,000 acre feet?
So Midland's going to use a little more, Abilene a little more. Midland a lot more than Abilene.
And evaporation.
But yeah, you got to take into account evaporation.
There's 102,000 acre feet in Ivy this morning.
This morning. Thank you.
And then each year, a hot year uses up, 2011 we used up twice as much in evaporation as normal. So we lose 62 inches a year straight down in evaporation. And it depends where the lake is, how much the fuller lake loses more to evaporation than because there's more surface
area.
So when these lakes start emptying out, it's more about losing it in other ways.
Based on when the Hickory is going to be online or not be online as to whether we have water remaining or not, scares me And I just would like to know a little closer as to how much water we are going to have or not have whenever we can get this online, when we get details worked out. To me, there seems to be a gap, and I think you were worried about this gap several months ago, Mr. Hirschfield, that we needed to be moving.
Okay, let me just, I want to summarize just some of this, because Paul's got tons of details, and you got tons of details and all this, but the 10,000-foot level is November, December of next year. Nothing happens the way we are, and we keep going with the trend of what we got. Ivy's dry, Spence is dry, O.C. Fisher's dry, Twin Buttes is dry, and Nasworthy's dry. Good times. Really, really good
Yes, sir.
times. Okay? And so that's why I was so concerned about ensuring that pushing that expanded well field so hard, because even the 6 million gallons a day that we can get in our current operation is not near enough, as Paul says, to barely flush your toilets
Right.
in your house. Needless to say, drinking water. And this is, it really gets to the point of, I don't care what people think about the Hickory water, and all this stuff. It's water. We don't have anything else. We don't have any other get-out-of-jail-free cards. This is it. And that's why we pulled the trigger, 2 years ago or so,
Right.
pulled the trigger, got all this stuff going, moving, going the way it was. It's adjudicated. Again, whether you like it or not, it's adjudicated. We own it. We've been banking. We've got the water development loan money there. I mean, it's there. And so I guess the real thing is that I think this is good signs of things. I'm concerned about where your bids are going to come in, and that you're not going to have enough money to even get 5 wells. I'm really concerned about that. But it's going to turn out however it's going to turn out. But we've got to have those 5 wells so we can have the 9 million gallons a day, so we can go into our house and flush our toilet and can turn on the tap and get some drinking water. Because our alternative from that is horrible. Absolutely horrible. Fair statement?
Fair statement.
Because if we don't get that, then we're talking having to beg, borrow, and steal water from our neighbors, our partners, or we don't have water at all, or we truck in water. We don't want to go there.
We might can extend our surface waters a little bit. We've been talking to TCEQ and kicking around some ideas. When we get the transmission main on, whether the treatment facility is ready or not, we can start blending some water to save some local sources. It's not much, but everything helps. It's like, we got some rain. It didn't fill up the lakes, but it'll cut back on some usage.
But the thing you have to be
we
careful
have
about
to-
again is the evaporation.
Correct.
That we lose
Right.
a percentage of that water to the sun no matter what we do.
Exactly.
And so my opinion is I would rather save the Hickory water as long as possible because it's not evaporating. The stuff in Twin Buttes and Nasworthy and Ivy, it goes away every single day.
That's correct.
Yeah, the Hickory Aquifer is an emergency backup, and this is the emergency coming. But when we have lots of water, we want to use it as little as possible, build our bank, and
Enough
preserve
to
the
keep
hickory.
the pumps rolling, to keep
Yeah,
the
that's all we
system
wanna do.
active and alive.
Correct. That's when we start using it, we're going to have to use some of it. We can't just turn it off and leave it off for 2 or 3
But
years.
you did bring up something, and I'll add to it, and that is we need to be looking at our affluent water, because if we can upgrade that water, there's a possibility we can send that water downstream instead of Nasworthy water downstream, which holds more water, keeps our water in Nasworthy. So we're still waiting for those numbers. If we just had a rough bid, it's $20 million, $15 million to upgrade at one level. We're at a level 2. That's a rough description. We can get to level 1. We can put on parks, golf courses. Maybe we can send it downstream. I need you to check with the TCEQ. Can we send that water downstream at a level 1 filtration on the effluent?
And I'm with you, Paul. But the problem is, again, I look at worst case scenario. That's what I planned for whenever I did all my construction jobs. I looked at worst case. What do we have to do? What can happen? What will happen? And you set the plan accordingly. The worst case happen is that we run out, that all the lakes run dry, Nasworthy and Twin Buttes runs dry. It doesn't matter about downstream people. And I don't mean that in a bad way.
No, there's nothing
They're
to
not
go
gonna
down
get
there.
water. We're not going to get water from that. I mean, so our only source is going to be this. We've got to be focused on our worst case scenario here. Drive it forward, push it as hard as we can. Our critical path, without a question or a doubt, is that expansion of the well field. Period. No question about that. That is our our biggest issue we've got facing us. And because if we don't hit that worst case scenario, we are in deep, deep trouble. Deep trouble. And so I urge you and I urge this council and the next coming council people to keep the focus on that expansion of the well field. Because that we've got to have that extra link where we know we can have tap water coming out of our house. We know that. We won't have trees. We won't have grass. We won't have all that. There you go. But we will have drinking water.
An asterisk. I completely agree with him. But what has to hit the media, what has to be in the paper and on the news, is that we're not trying to suck this Hickory aquifer dry. We're not taking it over and sucking it dry. It's an emergency.
And it's not taking water to water trees. This is
for drinking. This is for the welfare of the hub of the Concho Valley. And if other cities want to join in with us on our water systems, that's something I think we can look at. So if they want to work with us, call us. But we're not trying to drain the Hickory. That's what it comes across as, and that's not what it is. This is an emergency.
And one more point is that, again, the affluent water, doing things with that, other options that we have out there, every one of those issues, every single one of them takes time and money. Takes time and money that we don't have right now. We don't have. Try to get something through TCEQ and Water Development Board, and there's going to be the black spotted owl that farts the national anthem, and I'm sorry, I apologize, that that somebody is going to want to save and preserve and say there's some habitat out there for that we're going to have to get this. It's just going to be crazy. This stuff doesn't happen. Just for us to go get approval to clear the well fields for the spotted
Black-cap vireo.
I mean, we don't even know is there. But regardless, we had to follow such tight criteria.
Oh, we hired an environmental firm to prove he's there. He's there.
So the point is, whatever the other options are, I'm all in favor of.
Okay.
But don't lose focus of what we've got here, of our critical path.
Well, this
Let me pose this question, though, is with all the seriousness that is there, I mean, that's real. We're in trouble.
Yes.
Why are we not taking into consideration this gap as to when the Hickory will be available and online to us as to what we don't have stored for usage? Why are we not in drought stage 3 right now? I mean, we go by that one number. There's so many months, acre feet of water
You guys
left.
can control that. Y'all can bring that up and make that change, but you have to change the ordinance, correct?
That's my understanding.
Okay.
And I'd
I
like
would
to see
highly
that
suggest
at the
that
next
that be
meeting that we talk
The
about
very
that
next
ordinance.
meeting, that if the
kudos to you. Absolutely.
ordinance could be changed to take us to drought stage 3 because of the seriousness of the timelines not matching up.
There is a reason.
But absolutely.
The evaporation and underground losses, which is called percolation, are greater when the lakes are fuller. As it comes down and gets tighter and
Yeah.
lower, what we save, the gallon we save, we actually reap a bigger part of that. So when we save a gallon, we don't get a gallon later. We get less than. When we save a gallon when our lakes are bloated, we get a couple of drops later. I mean, it's really exaggerated. So when we get a little bit of water, when we save a gallon, and maybe we get a half gallon back 6 months later or something like that, you got to run figures like that to understand it. Somebody'd have to calculate all that out. But I'm just saying that if you go to drought stage level 3 now, it's not as effective as later. You can save a gallon now and you get a half gallon later or something like that. It's not as effective now.
But that half gallon is still a half gallon.
that's
Exactly,
the
and to
answer.
get the public's
That's right.
attention
That's
to
the answer, though.
conservation is imperative.
And I think the point on this is that, right now, if things go the way they are, y'all would be looking at going at drought level 3 in probably November?
September, right?
November, that's probably
October,
pretty
November,
close.
roughly in there.
Depends on.
If things
yeah,
stay with
there's
the path,
so
we got
many
18
variables,
months,
right.
you add it all up, it's October, November. And maybe what you can do is you can change that from drought level 3 being a 12-month supply, maybe get it back to a 15-month supply. Because it's going to take time to bring it up, discuss it, get the ordinance done. So if y'all could have a goal of 15 months, then that would bring it back to, September, August?
Not just the 15 months, but other extenuating circumstances.
Agreed.
Okay.
Agreed.
I do want to point out something also, that we're not totally just reliant on this for the future, that we are exploring other options at this point. There's various options that we're exploring. Some that are going to the Water Utilities Department right now, some of the studies that Ricky and Kevin are doing also. But there are other options, and I just want to make sure that the citizens understand that this isn't it, that this isn't the only thing that we have going for us. We do have other things that we'll be doing also that we'll be sharing. Long-term, yes, sir. That we'll be sharing, of course, with the other council members. But again, there are works in play right now.
But short-term?
Short-term right now, this is what we have.
Okay, we've kind of hashed it over, and this was a discussion. Bring us up to date. If there are no other questions from council, is there any public question? I'm sorry.
I just have
Mr.
one
Alexander?
comment. During this 20-minute conversation, we lost 53,000 gallons of water below Lake Nasworthy. But you got to understand, there's losses in our lakes. There's a documented loss from June of 2009, and at this Water Master Advisory Board, I asked that we take at least 3 more snapshots. We have June, let's do the fall, let's do the spring, let's do the winter, and it hasn't happened, and yet this is an enormous amount of water just percolating in the ground. By the way, more of that went above ground, evaporated away, a little bit more. That's to me is the biggest issue. So we start to go to drought level 3, but we have these kind of losses below Lake Nasworthy. That didn't make sense. Stop these losses so that when we save water, we actually save water, that it doesn't go away. There's a big old giant leak out there, and that takes permits to correct those things. You got to be able to lower those down to the river that was originally there, and then they don't leak so much.
Okay, no other
So,
questions from council?
I would consider that stuff.
Any public comment on this matter?
And while he comes up, I'd be willing to bet that there's still residential users out there using over 100,000 gallons a month. That would be my guess. I'd bet my right arm for that.
Good morning again, I guess. My name is Jerry C., and I'm one of the leaders of WTOS. I'm in agreement with drought level 3. I was quite a few months ago. But along with that, all of us that has lived in San Angelo, in this area, know about the mesquite tree. It was brought up several months ago, or last year, that the mesquite tree does more damage to water for us than evaporation. There was a mesquite tree program to eradicate the mesquite, but I think there should be a more aggressive effort to to eradicate the mesquite, especially around waterways. You know, the mesquite tree taproot is going to find where the water is. Now, if it's sitting right on the edge of where the water is, it's going to even take more water, and it's going to drink more water than the sun's going to dry up. Now, if you get more aggressive on the mesquite tree evaporation, especially around the lakes and the rivers and those places, you'll see that, I'm pretty sure you'll see that evaporation level is going to drop. You'll get a better results. And at drought level 3, you know, it's going to be better for us too. Plus, we are getting some help. It is raining a little bit, so the moisture level in the ground is getting deeper. So we'll have grass for a while. And if we can just make it maybe to winter time, it won't be so hot, and it'll stop the evaporation in our lawns and stuff. But drought level 3 and get busy with getting rid of those mosquitoes, then we'll show an interest in how we want to conserve our water. And we need that because it's going to take much longer than even you talking about now, getting that Hickory Aquifer online. It's going to take more than what you discussed today, that timeline. And if you ever work construction, you always know, excuse me, you can set goals, but it only works on paper. It only works on paper, and believe me, it's something to take a handle on. Take
Bull by the horns.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome.
I needed that.
Thank you for
Thank you
your
very much.
comments,
Thank you
Mr.
for your
C.
time.
Can I answer part of that? Because
Yes,
I wanted to tell you
please.
that over the past couple of years, the UCRA has kind of taken the lead in the mosquito eradication, and it's also been the salt cedar and other invasive breeds out in the, particularly the Twin Buttes, in that area. They did a whole lot of aerial spraying. Right now, it's going on as we speak at O.C. Fisher. There's nothing in O.C. Fisher, but God helping, it will at some point have the availability. And so at least whatever is going to flow in there will hopefully stay a little bit better. So that is going on right now. And by the way, it's interesting to watch. Go out to O.C. Fisher and you can watch them. It's a helicopter, and they've got these big trucks, and they tap onto. It's really a cool operation to watch.
I've seen it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Is there any
for
other
your time.
public comment on this issue before we move along? Okay, that being said, our next item, can squeeze in 18, update and presentation regarding the status and progress of the Housing Committee and subcommittees in reference to multifamily living, single-family living, and temporary housing in the form of campgrounds, RV parks, and extended stay situations as directed by City Council at the April 2nd, 2013 joint session with Planning Commission. Presentation is done by our City Manager, Daniel Valenzuela, and our Assistant City Manager, Chief Financial Officer. But it's Jeff that's coming to the
Yes.
microphone. So
I'd like to give a quick overview, though, before
I would
he
appreciate
gets
it. Thank
started,
you.
though. Of course, this is an issue that came up, especially with the talk of the Klein Shell and something that we know is coming. Council had directed the staff to start looking at this, and we did this in the form of a committee. We did put together the committee to address the housing issues. From that committee, we developed what we call 3 different subcommittees that we thought were the most important aspects that needed to be addressed, which were single family units, multifamily units, and temporary housing. And part of that temporary housing, of course, that was discussed a lot before this, there was a lot of talk about RV parks and camps and so forth. What we wanted to do, of course, is address these committees. We're very thankful to the diverse group that we actually put together that have participated on a week-by-week basis. We've been meeting every week for a couple of hours just to kind of debate some of the issues, go back and forth, and make sure that we come up with an ordinance that really will work for us, in particular with the campground and also the RV park, which will be an extension, or when we start looking at in particular the temporary housing, we'll be using the work that we've done to this point as a template. With that said, we do have Jeff Hintz here that will kind of give an overview of what we've discussed as priorities in the housing issues. And Jeff, I'll be quiet and allow you to start that presentation.
Certainly jump in whenever you feel you need to. It's not a problem for me. Good morning again, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. There were, as discussed at the April 2nd joint meeting with the Planning Commission, kind of in reaction to a lot of these applications we'd had, under the guise of RV parks. Were they actually RV parks or not is, up for debate depending upon who you talk with, certainly. In terms of the the direction of council, as you remember, you'd appointed this special committee that the city manager's office would have to really discuss this as a three-pronged issue, being single and multifamily as groups, and then the extended stay, as Daniel said. The main kind of conclusion that had come from the single and multifamily housing subcommittees was the affordability and availability of housing in the community. After some discussion about that, it was really determined that the builders that are in San Angelo now are, if they can know when, this rush is coming or if it's coming, they feel that through the resources they have and the projects they're able to complete, that they'll be able to meet what that demand is. There just needs to be a little more, surety for where and when this needs to happen. One main thing that was discussed was the availability listing or some type of comprehensive source that would, for folks looking to do these type of projects or build some sort of, information hub that would have all of this in one spot. So if you were going to be a builder, if you wanted to buy, if you were going to invest, anything like that, you would come to this one site. There would be city information, potentially from the planning end of things, what subdivisions are on the books, or, what's been approved already, or what might be out there. And then, links to certain properties that may or may not be available through the Realtors Association and things like that. The one mainstay from both of these groups was that there needs to be as frequent of updates as possible to this information hub from the city on our end, as well as from private individuals that would work with us too, to go ahead and give the most up-to-date and comprehensive information as possible.
What we're hearing, of course, is that from the developers, builders, is that they can keep up with the demand. What they need, though, is information to make sure that they're making wise investments, to know just how much to build or how much to cut back. And basically what we want to do, of course, is we'll be creating the website that will give pertinent information, kind of key indicators to to make sure that the investor does know that, hey, we definitely are primed for building at this point. So that's something that they come up. Actually, interestingly enough, two different committees came up with this thought also, was basically to make sure that we had an information hub somewhere where these investors could come to and say, hey, we've gathered the information, we're good to move forward. But right now their concern is that there's just not enough information just yet. We have met with Devin to kind of get a little bit more information. They're still a little bit tight-lipped as far as where, as far as development and so forth. They're still telling us that they're a couple of months away, actually, from the development phase, where they could give us some more information. But in the meantime, we can put together information that includes the number of apartments, the capacity, information from the Railroad Commission that shows how many permits have been issued for drilling and so forth. So again, that's a hub that we're working on at this point.
Moving forward, I'd kind of touched on this already, so I'll kind of breeze through this slide. We talked about how the demand, really, they feel it can be met here locally. The issue is just, when and where. Additional units that both committees felt would help alleviate a lot of these pricing and availability issues in terms of affordability. We also had some public comment this morning that, touched on this particular group, or this particular issue as well. So it is certainly something this group feels more units would certainly help the pricing issues, and the updated information would help folks to develop or not develop. Now on to the probably most anticipated subcommittee of the three, the temporary housing subcommittee. There's a couple members from that group here as well in the public, in the audience as well today. We'd started out with the 10-step strategic mapping approach. Talking about, the fact that, if we do overbuild, with houses and apartments or multifamily kind of units, that to meet this perceived oil field demand right now, in the long run, we may be left with vacant properties that could potentially lower all property values. So this committee feels strongly that there is a need for this type of use within the city limits, but the main issue is going to be where and, at what cost.
To kind of elaborate a little bit more on that, of course, I've been asked, do we even need to start even planning for any type of temporary housing? We should just leave that to the old people. They can either go out to the county, whatever. Our concern, of course, is that, as Jeff just mentioned, we can focus strictly just on single-family units or multifamily units and start building and building and building to meet demand. Our concern in the future is once the boom goes bust, we don't want a lot of vacant properties, that were overbuilt, that in the future would depreciate value of the property. So that, of course, was a consideration for us.
The main kind of starting out with this committee back in April, there was a lot of discussion about, what the current regulations do allow for and what, wouldn't they allow for, what might be the worst case scenario. There are some perceived and actual shortfalls of the current ordinance that have been discussed by this committee, as well as the unintended adverse effects of this land use has been one of the main topics of interest in terms of the public as well as in this committee as well, and from Planning Commission and of course at this level at Council. The main goal, that this committee is really set to establish is the protection of property values for residential units, both that are there now at this time, as well as for ones that maybe not, might not be built yet. So we'd taken a look at, and the commission, or this individual committee is pretty close to recommending something for the Planning Commission that they would, go through and then eventually, upon their blessing, send to this board as the policymakers for the city. We've discussed things about general standards regarding, the density and size of the parcels. Maybe, someone with just a little bit of property left over, that might not be the best spot for a campground. Screening and materials that would be used in screening this use from streets and other properties. Talked about guest registration, roadways within the park, site lighting, access to the site. One of the main things that this committee felt strongly about was having access to these types of facilities, but not through residential neighborhoods with all that extra traffic running through there. It wouldn't be an ideal situation. And the big one was the length of stay. That's been discussed as well, and they're prepared to have a recommendation that would really seek to address that. They've also discussed allowed vehicles in the facility, so it doesn't just turn into some type of, junked vehicle, pile yard in some cases. We've talked with other cities through staff's research about some of the, misconceptions and problems they've got with these types of facilities in their cities, and, folks with junked vehicles. That was one of the main things we'd gotten back, so we felt it strongly that at the committee level that be addressed, as well as parking. And then one of the main ones that's not in now is a detailed site plan with multiple elements that would be included with any application. So when these items go before Planning, Commissioning, eventually Council, if they go that far, you would know exactly X, Y, Z. Probably A through Z is probably a better representation of the letters, but you'd know exactly what they're going to do and where they're going to do it at. There's also been discussion at this point. This committee is most of the way through the types of regulations and things they'd like to see. We're to the point of talking about renewal and enforcement of permits that are issued by council for these types of uses, if there should be an annual renewal for properties that are found to be in constant violation or in any amount of violation. What type of level of enforcement are we going to have on these? And then more stringent buffering requirements is one of the main things this committee feels pretty strongly about for facilities that are located adjacent to residential properties. And then, again, we'd already mentioned this too, but those unintended adverse consequences on neighboring properties have already been developed. With that, though, they are very close to a full recommendation regarding the campground and RV park use. And one of their main things that it brought up at the last several meetings, if these things are just banned from the city limits altogether, it could become a lost revenue source for the community, because folks are going to come in and stay at these, and we'll be spending money in the community through sales tax. And if we ban them altogether, they may just happen just outside the city limits anyhow, where the city's not able to get that revenue. Work on more permanent, longer stay, perhaps industrial housing is very close to be commencing, and I'll hand it back to you, sir.
What I want to mention also is that, I mentioned as far as how thankful that we've been as far as the subcommittee that have come together. This is just a quick overview. It doesn't talk about the distance from residential areas as far as the buffering and so forth. There has been a lot of thought put into this, a lot of things that we hadn't thought of. And we're just very impressed with the group that we brought together. As I mentioned a while ago, a very diverse group. Initially, individuals that came in that were totally against anything that had to do with temporary housing, but realized that this is something that we have to work together as a group to come up with something that will work for the city. So I'm very pleased with the progress. As a matter of fact, we have another meeting this afternoon after the city council, and I think that we'll finally finish up on the RV and campground and move forward on, I think, the temporary housing portion of it will go rather quickly, because we already have a template of that with all the discussions that we've had with the RV parks also. But again, we do have a sample ordinance that we've been working through. It's pretty close to completion and almost ready to go to the Planning Commission also for the review and recommendation to the City Council.
Just one other thing I'd add really quickly, if I may, in terms of what the contents of this ordinance. Staff has certainly worked with this committee, but I would like to iterate to this council that it's very much a committee proposed ordinance. Staff has really been kind of hands off and more of a observer, and just things that we certainly know from professionally that it will work and may not work in terms of enforcement, but this isn't something that staff has said, let's do this, and we've gotten the committee to kind of agree to it. It's, the committee has, said, let's do this, staff, let's try to make it work. So that's what a lot of these, draft things cover.
I would like to ask just one question with reference to the campgrounds, RV parks. Jeff, are you familiar with how many trailer park home livings there is currently in San Angelo that were grandfathered in?
I'm familiar. You mean like RVs where you can start them up and drive them away, or actual like mobile home manufactured living
No,
parks?
mobile home parking in town is grandfathered in before the city outlawed any mobile homes or any more RVs in the city limits. Are you aware of how many there is out there?
I could get that for you. I don't have it off the top of my head. I think
There
it's
are
in
5 that I know of, and I am curious is if the committee took into consideration is to see what their availability was to be able to offer, through the chamber, these locations that are scattered here in town, because that's a move in, move out that the grandfather doesn't affect.
We definitely want to hear your thoughts on this also, that we, anything that we could incorporate into this, into the planning, and again, we're still working on this at this point, so anything else that you can recommend?
Mr. Vardaman?
I was going to say, along with those, we do have some designated areas that were also grandfathered in within neighborhoods already, so I didn't know if they were aware of those also.
Okay. Any other, Mr. Hirschfield?
My opinion doesn't really matter on this because,
Yes, it does.
well, after today, it won't matter. So I don't think we need to have any more RV parks in the city. I think if the city feels obligated that we need to be doing something with it, we own the city farm out there. Let's do a little bit of development out there, and let's centralize it and keep it out there. Y'all may have looked at that and said it doesn't work. I don't know, but I'm telling you, my opinion, not in the city limits. I just think it's a problem. We're going to get the sales tax revenue regardless. Okay, they're still going to come eat at our restaurants, shop at our stores, and buy the gas in town. Okay, so my opinion is we don't need to be going there with this. I just think that when you balance the risk reward, the risk to me outweighs the reward. That's just my opinion. And then I guess one last little comment I want to make, again, because this will be my last time to be able to talk about this in this forum, is we finally have property sold out at the industrial park now. Don't mess it up by putting that out there, okay? Because you do that, you will run off, you will not have any kind of enticement to have any other businesses trying to locate out there. So please don't do that. So anyway.
Thank you, Mr. Hirschfield. Any other comment from council on this subject? Okay, from the public? If not, I'm going to, first of all, I'd like to ask the council before I break for executive session, if my fellow council members up here have any objections to our inviting our newly elected folks up to the executive session meeting due to the content that is up there. No objection, Marty? You? Okay, at this time, I'd like to take us into executive session. We do have some business to discuss today. Executive session under the provision of Government Code Title V, Open Government Ethics, Subtitle A, Open Government Chapter 551, Open Meetings, Subchapter D, exceptions to the requirement for the meetings be open under the following sections. Section 551.072, to deliberate the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property. Section 551.071, to consult with attorney on a matter in which the duty of the attorneys to the governmental body under the Texas Disciplinary Rules and Professional Conduct State Bar of Texas clearly conflicts with this chapter. It is hereby 12:03, and we are in executive session. It'll probably take about an hour and a half, I would think. Okay. Session. And with council's permission, I would like to go in and reopen for discussion item 17. And Mr. Dixon, what I would like to ask of you is if you could provide for council, and I think it's for council, it's not just for me, is that right? If you could provide for council at the first meeting in July, give us the contract dates with the Hickory project with referencing to the engineering firm. And you're saying the percentage that the property is complete, and I apologize to you, this information was provided to me last week and I have mislaid it. And I just like that because I wanted to share it with others. But in particular, with reference to the fees involved, and I'm looking for if we had guaranteed or written, percentages. The opinion of estimated costs that we were first provided a few years ago, I would like to compare those costs with the ranges that we have expended to date. That makes sense?
Let me ask just one question for clarification, and you're talking about just the engineering portion of this Hickory project?
The
Is that
whole
what you're
portion
saying?
of the project to date.
You want paid to date,
Paid to date.
including progress payments of,
And then that compared to the estimated cost of expenditures that when we first awarded the contract.
really what she's looking for is a simple budget analysis there where you give the, contract value, amount paid, left to be paid, that kind of
See
thing.
if there's term left on the contract, the amount of money that's left to be expensed for works done. I just need to see
And
that.
I would suggest that you hit it off the same line items that you had.
Okay.
Headline there. I think that should be simple since you've already got those called out there. You can just do actuals.
Any other request on that item by any of the council to look at?
I would still like to get a copy of the slide presentation that he had with those figures on there also.
I noticed it wasn't in our packets
Right.
today, and it normally is. So, Mr. Valenzuela, if the...
We'll get that. We'll
Okay.
get that information.
All right, being that was just an addition to 18, we can move on. We have follow-up of administrative issues. There are none to follow up on. Item number 20, consideration of approving a board nomination by council and designated council member, a planning commission, Mark Crisp, SMD 2, to an unexpired January 2014 term.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion to approve by Mr. Hirschfield and a second by Mr. Vardaman.
Question.
Yes?
I was looking at his application. This is the first one I've ever seen where information is blotted out, so I was wondering why.
The reason it's blotted out is because this goes out to the public, and we
Mhm.
protect the individual's address and personal information
Okay.
unless it's requested.
Gotcha. My question has been answered. Thank you.
Okay. Any public comment? Had a motion and a second. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, announcements. Have a couple of announcements that Alicia gave me, and maybe this is an announcement that I should have done in the beginning, but I didn't. I do have the Board of Directors quarterly report on Porch Plains, and I am, as we agreed, we're handing it to the city manager to put in the library upstairs, the most recent one that has come in. And then the other announcement, the Port to Plains Board meeting is in Sonora, July 17th and 18th. I know that Dwayne and I are going. We have discussed it with one another, and I believe the city manager was considering going, so let us know and make sure it'll be a good update and it'll be a good opportunity to visit our sister city, Sonora, Texas, hot, dry. And do we have any future agenda items other than the Stage 3 water, the wording in our drought policy? Ms. Bowling?
I cannot think of anything else.
But how soon can we have, say, something to look at?
Well, I'll work with the department to find out what substantive language is required, and then we will, we'll have to have, perhaps, The second
Mr.
meeting in July. Second meeting in July?
Second meeting in July?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Vardaman, do you have any future agenda items you'd like to discuss?
No, ma'am, not at this time.
Not at this time. Mr. Hirschfield, you got a dream list you'd like us to follow up on? Give us some words of encouragement of what you'd like to see us continue.
Tell it like it is. Come on.
Well, I will say that I've been working with some independent people out there on water conservation programs, and it's something I've tried to kind of get going here, and it just hasn't kind of come together. So you may see me again presenting that as a program.
Conservation efforts on our water.
But it won't be. I'm hoping it will be an agenda item at some point in the future. But
I think it would be well received. Hopefully, you'll stay on top of it and keep
yes,
going.
It'll be encompassing of some of the potential incentives and packages and such that, and ideas of even how to provide those incentives and pay for those incentives. So.
Any other parting words? Well, you can have them next week, but I won't be here next week, so I want to hear them now. Mr. Alexander, how about you?
Before Kendall and I leave, I'd like to get on this. I don't see it, somehow it's gone away, but I think that a year and a half ago, Kendall and I both brought up in a meeting, and I think I brought it up since then, I mentioned it, that the stormwater fee can only work with or help quality issues. And Kendall and I felt a long time ago, and it's still applicable today, that it ought to also look at quantity issues. Flood control is what I'm talking about. Or that fee should lower down over time. And the second part of that is mowing. What's happening here? Stormwater is mowing. That relationship between mowing and it was in one department, now it's another, and this and that. So mowing's getting some benefit, but flood control is not. There's some problems, and we've brought it up in the past, and that all needs to be cleared up, and y'all need to get that clear in how you use your money. And it could go towards flood control or it could go towards mowing, but it's not clear, and those have been questions that come up that have not been answered.
And part of my proposal when I come back with the conservation will hopefully be using part of that stormwater for as incentives.
Okay,
for
so you could also add incentives to the
or-
stormwater fee up for discussion,
You're right,
so that it
right.
plugs or correlates with your.
Right.
Okay.
So
But
yes,
I think
it's two different things.
that was decided upon before Kendall and I got here, May 10th, 2010. So it's been 3 years, and it's time to look at that again. Y'all should be saving money. You should know your expenses better.
And that's one of the things, when it was set up, there was implementation of, buying equipment, hiring people, doing all those
That's right.
sort of things, and the equipment should have already be down to maintenance and some of
Is your
those sorts of
microphone
things.
on, Dawn?
And I just took my book out of my briefcase this morning about the stormwater fees and stuff, which brings to the subject when Mayor New first came on council. He had talked about the possibility of us revisiting the stormwater fee, and I, for one, wanted to wait until the stormwater fee had a track record, because then it was just, didn't even have a full year operation. But I think what the stormwater pays for, everything that it's used for, and the fees that are currently being charged, it would be a good idea during budget preparation if we looked at that amount again, and to see if it's something that we can do with a little bit less of, or if it still needs to be at the rate that it is now. If that could be put on a budget workshop, I would appreciate it.
But to use it for flood control, you're going to have to change the ordinance.
Yes.
So.
And do you remember that conversation? Okay, I wasn't dreaming. And Alicia, I'm sorry, I guess I dropped my announcements or put them somewhere because I don't have them now.
Are you going to continue down the line? He never finished.
No, we don't want to hear from you.
I don't want to, but I don't have the
Oh, that's
announcements.
right.
Just a minute, I don't have the announcements if you needed me to read them. I don't know what I did
No,
with
ma'am,
them.
that was at the beginning of the meeting.
Okay, Mr. Self?
Not at this time.
Not at this
You
time.
were going to ask me if I had any future
Mhm.
agenda.
Mr. Silvas?
Yes, ma'am.
Mhm.
Thank you. No, one of the things I wanted to touch back on was, I had asked for a MedHab update, and I don't want to have to go back and read their meetings, their minutes, just a little 10 or 15-minute update of what we are, where we are we doing anything? That's one. I've asked for it a number of weeks ago. Two, and I think Marty touched on it at the last meeting, but Rick, where are we? I'd like to know where we are as far as bids going out to these folks that are possibly going to cut down some of these dead trees along the river. Maybe an update on that.
Like we talked about at the meeting.
Yes, but for all of us,
Presentation.
right.
I'm sure you want something in the Friday.
The council would, a short presentation would be good, just so we'd all be on the same page. That's all I can think of. Thank you.
And I've got you two already, right? Right. Okay. There being no further business.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Been a motion to adjourn from Mr. Hirschfield, a tie down here in the corner. I'll give it to Mr. Self.
No, it was Mr. Alexander.
Oh,
What?
excuse me.
We're ready to get out of here.
Yeah, we'll come back one time to say hi. We'll vote one
Well,
more time.
I'm just trying to drag it
That's
out,
right.
guys, because I won't be
And
here
it'll be
next
over.
week.
Stretch
I
one
can't
more
tell
vote
you
out of
bye.
you, and that's it.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are
Aye.
adjourned.